Good evening, everybody. Thank you and welcome to Newberg City Council, August 5th meeting. We have a special treat today. This gentleman to my left is Alex, and he is the mayor for the day. He's been sworn in. So at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to him. So let's grab the gavel, call the meeting to order, and then call for a roll call.
Call to order. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, sir. Counselor McBride,
Here.
Counselor Wheatley,
Here.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Here.
Counselor Kilberg,
Here.
Mayor Rosacker,
Here.
Counselor Floyd,
Here.
Counselor Carmen.
Here.
Thank you.
And why don't you introduce the city manager for the day?
And we have the what?
City manager?
We have the city manager over there is my sister Isabel.
Well, welcome, Isabel. All right. So the first item on the agenda is what?
We have the proclamation of honors.
Actually, ask everybody to stand up and
Stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation. Whereas teachers work hard every day to educate their students, and whereas teachers care deeply about their students, and whereas teachers give themselves to their students to help them have a bright future. Now therefore it is proclaimed by the mayor and the city council on the behalf of the people of the city of Newberg, Oregon, that we declare August 6th, 2024 as Thank a Teacher Day. In witness of whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Newberg to be affixed on this meeting day of the month year. Oh. Is there any teachers in the audience?
all right, let's go ahead and proceed. You want to read it again so everybody can hear it?
Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't help him. turn the
Oh,
microphone.
sorry. Whereas teachers work hard every day to educate their students, and whereas teachers care deeply about their students, and whereas teachers give themselves to their students to help them have a bright future. Now therefore it is proclaimed by the mayor and the city council, and on behalf of the people of the city of Newberg, Oregon, that we declare August 6th, 2024, Thank a Teacher Day. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Newberg to be affixed to this meeting, August 6th,
2024.
2024. Can we get the city manager reports?
City manager, may I be given permission to give the city manager's report?
Yes.
Thank you. These will be the events for July of 2024. New slide, please. Before we get into our first slide, I'd just like to mention that we have some big plans for doing some road improvements this summer, and we're looking at resurfacing the whole of 2nd Street, including some spot repairs, crack and slurry seal, and then putting back the mastic layer. And we also are within August going to be resurfacing the main municipal parking lot and putting up some wayfinding signs so people can find the other parking lots. Then, if we don't run out of sunshine, We are going to look at one of the street sections near Edwards School and see if we can get some grinding and lay work done. But we will be doing a lot more next year than we did this year. Dispatch is fully staffed with the hire of M. Anderson. Excited to have her. And as you can see, SRO Moreland, McDonald and Corporal Link stopped at a birthday party in the park, saying hi to the kids. And at National Night Out, I will once again be making delicious hot dogs. New slide, please. And there's the flyer for that one. Looking good. New slide, please. Dispatch having fun on the 4th of July and the officers there with the kids in the park. New slide, please. At the City Recorder's Office, there was a rush of activity as the City Recorder's Office supported our sister city visit. There was a beneficial exchange of ideas back and forward between their delegation and ours, including their Burgomeister, their mayor. And there were nomination filings taking place for the next election. And of course, we welcomed our new councillor, hard-working councillor Cloyd. New slide, please. We conducted a high-level inventory of city archives, and we're going to really lean into digitisation this year. Our goal is to get rid of all of that paper. New slide, please. Finance has been performing year-end activities, and as you know, later in the agenda, we have a budget adjustment, which is typical for this time of year. July is a very busy time. End-year accruals and last-minute adjustments are made at the end of the year. But we have also started our work on the biennial budget process with a committee formed to help ensure we don't miss any critical parts. The primary driver there is to have 2-year cycles for capital improvement projects so we can do them more efficiently and keep them under budget. We've also developed a new project accounting system, once again to have more accuracy around CIP projects, capital improvement projects, big things like roads, pipes, and such. New slide, please. Court has been working with PD to get ready for the red light camera program, which will be up and running fairly soon. And don't worry, if you're watching this at home, there will be a long period when we will only notify somebody that they have created a red light running situation. We will not start right away issuing fines to people. We will make sure that local residents know where the camera is. New slide, please. In Library Land, summer reading program was in full gear, and the library mascot Turbo has charmed all the kids. 4,000 entries came in for the mascot all over town, and we added a flat turbo so kids can colour in the picture, take it on their travels, and send back images of that. And of course, one of our favourite performers in the summer is the ghastly Richard Ritchie, known as the Reptile Man, with his horrific creatures that he brings to the library, big serpents and lizards and things. And we actually had 350 people at that event. New slide, please. Library staffer Tiffany was so delighted to hold a giant reptile at the programme. Other staffers took a vacation day to avoid the snake. For babies and other pre-readers, summer story times build early literacy skills, the foundation for reading. And the busy buzz of summer is now starting to wind down, coming to a close on August 10th. Library staff will then change gears and focus on fall programming. New slide, please. And here is Tiffany, who, as you can see, is absolutely delighted to have a boa constrictor crushing her neck. New slide, please. And here is Turbo and Flat Turbo, and in this case, waiting at the airport to get on a plane. New slide, please. Public Works, the 2024 edition of the Public Works Day was held, as usual, on June the 20th outside the library. In addition to all the usual players, we had the Newberg Old Fashioned Festival Court, Waste Management, TVF&R, the Yamhill County Amateur Radio Emergency Service, ARES operators, as well as a host of others. New slide, please. And here is a picture of Public Works Paws, that giant inflatable, that giant creature who comes out to meet the children at Public Works Day. And we revealed the winning name for the street sweeper, which was not my favourite choice, but I didn't get a vote. And the winner was called Sweeping Beauty. I like Mr. Scrubby better, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. New slide, please. And here are some more pictures from Public Works Day. The kids love jumping on the equipment, and Waste Management were there, and Yamhill County Areas booth, and they actually allowed the kids to get on the radio net and communicate with people far away, which was fun. These are the volunteers, by the way, who've agreed in an emergency to come in and help us set up the Emergency Operations Centre, which would happen in this room if we had a big fuel spill or an earthquake, and these guys would come and help us do long-range radio communications. New slide, please. HB 2001 waterline projects. Design is in progress with first construction phase anticipated to be advertised for this fall. Additional design and construction phases will continue throughout 2024, and this is what we call making the best effort we can for a state unfunded mandate. New slide, please. And a few other recent public works maintenance items. 900 feet of sewer main cleaning. That's a lot. Water meter service, 109. Maintenance on water meters, 48. And 44 cubic yards of debris cleaned up off of our roads. New slide, please. Here's Public Works sewer and storm crews working together to clean the median divider and pedestrian refuge from Butcher to First Street on 99. Something that you would think ODOT would do. New slide, please. The water treatment plant. The system used an average of 2.96 megagallons during the month, with a maximum of 3.56 on Wednesday, June 26th. The historical daily use for the month of June is 2.86. 33 bacteria samples were collected, and they all complied with our standards. New slide, please. Over to the other stuff. 75 million gallons were treated at the plant, 2.13 inches of rainfall per our weather station. 525 yards of compost sold, our fresh, delicious homemade compost, and 59 megawatt hours of energy from the solar array. New slide, please. The IT department worked on some important projects, keeping maintenance going for our computers. A major project we made headway on is updating our mobile data terminals through a new data provider, because we have had some small outages in the system, and we hope that that will be resolved. New slide, please. We're also happy that the nearly worldwide outage caused by the CrowdStrike mess did not affect our system, and it also did not prevent the city manager from getting on his plane to Maui. His first vacation in 3 years, and that was fun. So cool. With the change to a new fiscal year, July is often another busy month for purchases, renewing annual licenses, upgrading hardware, and similar IT shenanigans. New slide, please. We received a new storage appliance, and we've begun working with the vendor to get that up and running. And that is a sort of firmware device that can store our data, and we often upgrade those from time to time. This should provide enough performance to last the city for 5 years. New slide, please. HR held a trial run for protected leave training, which will be rolled out to all supervisors. This will make the information widely known across the city staff. We also assisted in hiring a new communications officer. We talked about that already, Ms. Anderson. HR has also focused its attention on several other recruitments towards the end of the month, and many of those have interviews coming up soon. Although we are still trying to find people for our sidewalk crew, and we have not been able to attract people because some folks want to have cash in hand rather than a secure retirement and good insurance for their families. Maybe they should think about the longer range balance of those decisions. New slide, please. So that is it for the July events. As you can see, as usual, taxpayers' dollars have been wisely spent. The only city of our size in Oregon whose budget is smaller this year than the budget was last year. Thank you kindly. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you for your report, Assistant City Manager. I have a question for you. How did your dragon boat races go this weekend?
That's an excellent question. So despite being on a very recreation team known as the Highland Roosters, out of the 4 races that happened at Ridgefield, Washington, we won 3 of them and we didn't win in the final. So we came 4th. But coming 4th in a field of 25 is very good for a recreational team. Woo.
Does the council have any questions
For the city manager.
for the city manager, of course? No?
I have one.
Yeah.
Madam City Manager, what is your assistant over there referred to something as the other stuff? Do you know what he was referring to?
I'm not sure what he was referring to.
All right, so the next item on our agenda.
What?
Good. Tell me the next item on our agenda. Okay, comments.
Public comments.
Call Matt Wilcox.
Matt Wilcox, you have.
Hey, great job on the Old Fashioned Festival, by the way. Yeah, that was really good. I just wanted to kind of bring something up to light that I just heard about. I'm a real estate broker in Newberg, and this is the property on First and Howard. For a lot of you that haven't probably been in Newberg as long as I have, that's called the Butler property. But I just found out that there was like an opening bid or something where the property was received multiple offers on it or something. And it kind of disappoints me that it wasn't actually put out on the public market. And from what I have heard of the price, I think it was a disservice to the city of Newberg for doing something like this. And a great example is on the corner of Second and Blaine. About a week and a half ago, I listed a property zone C3, 10,200 square foot lot. Put it on the market for $380,000, and we got an accepted offer in over, it was about 24 hours. Closes in September. And I guess I just want to ask, it's like, why was this not publicly listed on the market? And not saying that I wanted the listing, it would have been really cool, but why wasn't it like listed and put on MLS and LoopNet and everything? Is there any reason to that?
Go ahead and continue. Go ahead and continue. When you're done, then we can talk about questions.
Oh, I'm pretty much done.
Okay.
I just want to know why, because I mean, I'm going through what we just went through with everything great that the city of Newberg is doing with public funding and doing all that stuff. It just seems like you guys left a lot of money on the table. Newberg is a great community, and this is one of the best lots that we would have. And why we didn't take advantage? What's that?
Oh, I'm waiting to be directed to speak.
Okay, I just don't know why we didn't take advantage of putting it out there to let everybody know, because it's not only somebody from Newberg that could have bought it, it could have been somebody from a different area and come in and done something really cool with that property. So I guess now I'll take your answer.
Perhaps.
We'll go ahead.
First of all, there were 2 possible ways that the marketing of the property could have been done, and the council weighed up the advantages of those 2 options. One was letting all of the local organizations in town be aware that the property was available so that someone genuinely local like yourself could have made a bid on it, which you didn't. Unless this is a cash offer you're giving us right now.
So I agree with trying to keep it local. As you know, we've done a lot of developments local. We've done everything. We use a lot of local subs. However, when it comes down to the city finances, to me, it would make a lot more sense to put it on the market. And it could have been a local person that would have purchased the property if they would have known about it. It was just kind of a secret thing is what it felt. No, when you put it in a multiple listing system and it goes out to the public, that's a lot of people in Newberg that would have access to it.
And I would speak.
Turn my button off.
Cool. So actually, there were two possibilities. One was to do a full-on marketing campaign. That would have been one of the elements of that marketing campaign. The other option was, which the council preferred, was a keep it local option, telling all the local civic organizations, telling the Chamber of Commerce, all of those entities locally were informed that the property was available. And that was a decision that the council made because they're not just concerned about the dollar amount, they're also concerned about keeping some control over what happens with the property for the good of the city, to make sure it's not something that's not suitable for the downtown area for the long-term benefit of the city. Was this necessarily the right decision? Well, different people would have different opinions. But that's the decision that they made, and of course, that's a decision that I enacted. So now we are currently in negotiations with somebody who's made an offer, and we will know soon whether that offer is serious, whether they're going to commit to the things that the council has asked me to have on the list. There are certain things they want to see happen in this development. So I think you would have to say that I've answered your question directly and fairly, would you not?
I would say if you brought it out to the public, I was never aware of it. I mean, how did you market the property to the public?
I can assure you that every counselor sitting at the table tonight has heard what you had to say. We definitely appreciate your comments. We will have further discussion on this matter at some point, and you know, we'll do the best that we can for the city. That's all I can say. I wish that we would have talked to you before we made a decision. So there we go.
And again, it's not just me. I'm born in this town and raised here. My kids went through schools and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to something like this, where you got that property, it would have been really nice if everybody would have known, hey, this is for sale, and publicly announce this is going up for sale, and do it so everybody has a chance at it. That's the only thing that I'm saying.
Thank you.
Great job on the festival too. I love it.
By the way, the Old Fashioned Festival is not something that the Newberg, city of Newberg puts on. They have their own committee. You're absolutely correct. Brian Love, Bob Woodward, and their whole crew did an excellent job. And please, if you have the opportunity, thank them for what they did. I enjoyed the festival myself.
Next, Mike Wilcox.
So,
Yep.
My name is Mark Wilkins. I've also lived here all my life. That's my little brother. I guess being in development, and I was a real estate broker since '83. I was a real estate appraiser, and now I'm a builder developer. If I'm going to sell a piece of property, I don't tell the Chamber of Commerce and hope it all goes good. That property's worth $400,000 all day long. And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We just sold that one for $380. If you know the fire station on Blaine and Second Street, same size lot, 24 hours on the market, 380 grand. This is downtown Newberg, one of the most prime downtown pieces. I understand you'd like a local person to do something really cool, but if I'm gonna sell some property, I'm not gonna call the Chamber of Commerce to try and make it happen. That's all I have to say.
Next, reports and presentations. Can we get the library update?
Good evening. My name is Corey Burkle. I'm the library director at the Newberg Public Library.
So
It doesn't work for me, so we'll see how this
the
goes.
down arrows.
Down arrow, thank you. Tonight is a refresher on library services as well as an update on this past fiscal year as well. So a little bit of history to start with. The Newberg Public Library began in 1908. It was in the corner of the YMCA, thanks to the Wednesday Club of Newberg, which was a local civic organization at the time. The Carnegie Library was finished 4 years later in 1912. The building was 4,000 square feet and the city provided support at $1,000 a year. And this was to keep the lights on and fund the library staff person as well. In 1986, the library was expanded thanks to local donations from the community, land from Ken and Joanne Austin, as well as voter-approved tax bond of $965,000. In the 1970s, the library joined the Chemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service. This is important to Newberg because we have reciprocal lending. So if somebody at our library wants a book that is only available in Salem, then that goes on the courier truck to Newberg, and then the library patron can pick it up in Newberg. We now have courier service Monday through Saturday. So that's been an improvement over the last year. It was a trial basis for a while, and just this last week has become a regular service. So we found that Saturday courier service greatly helps our library patrons get their items faster, and also helps our staff to even out all of that workload as well. CCRLS also provides databases, some funding to ebooks and e-audiobooks. We have an online catalog that we share with 18 member libraries. So that's been a great resource for the library as well. The library has 3 groups that give support. The Library Advisory Board is made up of 6 citizens, including a high school student. Everyone has equal voting on the board, including the student, which has been really great for us. We've had some really, really great students on our library board that have given us a great perspective that I really appreciate. The Library Advisory Board advises on policy, strategic plan, and library issues, and they meet 10 times a year. The Library Friends are a 501c3 and support the library through selling books that the library is not able to use. They sell books in the lobby for 50 cents for paperback, $1 for a hardback, and they make about $1,000 a month in sales. So they do a lot of sales in the lobby. And they do about $500 a month in online sales from Amazon. And then there's also additional donations that will come in throughout the year as well. Last fiscal year, the Friends funded restoration for the 1912 windows and doors in the Carnegie Library. And this fiscal year, they're funding new shelving in the Carnegie Library, which is quite expensive. And they've pledged $30,000 to do those repairs as well. And lastly, the Library Foundation is also a 501c3. And the Library Foundation is where the library receives endowments. Funds from the Library Foundation fund our library programming, which we have quite a bit of, as you'll see in a minute. And they're funding that at $28,000 this year. We have 18 library staff, 14 regular employees, and 4 on-call employees. We have 7 employees that have worked for the city for longer than 10 years, and 13 employees that have worked for the library for over 5 years. So we have a lot of longevity on staff. We also have a few staff who have finished their master's in library science in the last couple of years, and one who is currently working on her master's. And I really love the combination of the veteran staff that we have, as well as people going through their schooling still. I think it makes for a really exciting library experience. Library stats. So we have about 90,000 physical items in the library, but we also have access to 58,000 ebooks, 38,000 e-audiobooks, and that's all free with a person's library card. So that's part of the resources that we get as part of CCRLS. And then the Newberg Public Library also puts additional funding into that as well. We're open 44 hours a week. We average about 31,240 circulation events a month and about 2,650 reference questions. I do have some exciting news I haven't even told Will yet, which is July 2024, we hit an all-time high for circulation with 35,727. Very happy with that. We also hit our all-time high of door count with a high of 10,330. So these are all really good things. We have a really vibrant, active library. And I'll just give the credit where it's due, which is our library staff. We really have a fantastic library staff, and they're very in tune to the community, and we have a great library community as well. Now, there are just a couple of things I wanted to show you pretty quickly because they're new to the library collection or some of our newer collections. So we now have, instead of CD, well, when I first started at the library, we had tapes, cassette tapes that were audiobooks, and then we moved to CDs, and now we've moved to something called playaways. So these are great little devices that are like MP3 players. You've got your play button here, your battery goes here, and you plug in your headphones right here. So it's all together device. These have been extremely popular at the library, as have our library of things. So a good number of our items are checked out, but I did bring this one. It's a Black & Decker line laser auto leveling with stud sensor. So this can be checked out at the library. We do small tools, but not large tools because some of our large tools didn't come back and they were kind of expensive. So we decided to stay with the smaller tools that fit better on our shelves anyway. One of our most popular things in our library of things is our games. We have a ton of board games and they're extremely popular. I brought this one that I haven't tried out yet, but it's called Really Loud Librarians. And I feel like Will and I would be really good at this game. Will probably has been too, but I've been shushed by a 3-year-old in the library before. So, I mean, as a children's librarian, I think when you start as a children's librarian, you're not very quiet, which is fine. It's a public library. All right, and on to our programming. So these are the statistics for last fiscal year, as you can see. We had a total of 558 programs, and this is on-site programs as well as off-site library programs. Off-site programs means that we've gone someplace in the community to reach out to people. We have a great partnership with Head Start. We love going there. They come to us for a big Head Start night as well. We do childcare deliveries. We attend, Beyond Backpacks is coming up this month. We attend that to offer library resources. So there's a lot of different community events that we attend as well. So our total program attendance was 32,890, which is great for a library our size. We are really programming focused, which is where a lot of our staff time goes. And as you can see, that's where a lot of, or most of our grant funding goes as well. Oh, I should say, this year, our newest program is homebound deliveries. So we're with the help of volunteers, we're taking books out to people in retirement homes and at their homes when they're not able to get out to the library. So this is a really important service we feel that we should offer to the community. And we're at about a dozen now, but we keep growing every month too. So it's been a great program. In your packet, you received all of the details from our customer service survey. Here's just some highlights overall. Our customer service survey was really good. And we did find some gaps that we have. And those were pretty much all on our apps. So we realized we need to let more people know about our self-check app that we have, which means that just with your smartphone, you can come into the library, use your smartphone to check out your items. And then by the time you go out the door, it will have connected with the system, so you won't be going out the door, which is fantastic. It's actually something that we'll put into place. So that's been a really good resource too for people. Of course, we always have our front desk staffed as well. There's always extra things that come up for people there. And then our Libby app, which is a favorite of mine. I was talking to Counselor Wheatley about this earlier. She's also a fan of the Libby app. So this is something that not everybody is comfortable with, and that's fine too. I would say we do help probably 2 or 3 people a week, mostly seniors, setting up Libby on their iPad or on their smart device. It's a great opportunity for reading too, because you can make the font much bigger. And then the e-audiobooks are really great for people too. And those are just soaring in popularity too. Future plans include scanning historical Newberg graphics and documents, including a bunch of documents we're bringing down from Riley Park in probably about a couple of weeks. I've also been working with Professor Caitlin Corning. Rachel's familiar with her. For Serve Day, George Fox always comes to the library, and I've requested that Professor Corning comes with some students, and she's on board with all of that, so she's going to help us sort through those documents as well. But this will be a multi-year project. This is not a small project at all. We're going to continue to grow the homebound book deliveries, and we're also launching Community Webs, which is also grant funding, and it captures community stories. So we would be we'd start with retirement homes, going into retirement homes, chatting on recording with people who are wanting to tell their stories that are specifically about Newberg. And then we'll branch out to other community members after that. So that's another one that we're really excited about too. Any questions for me?
I'm proud to have this library in our town. I've been a fan for about 40 years. There was something you said I didn't quite understand. After you talked about the friends and volunteers raising about $1,000 a month, and then you said they have about $500 in online sales through Amazon. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, so the Library Friends have a seller's account So they go through Amazon. When books come in, they're really good at figuring out which of those books might sell for more money online. So because we sell for 50 cents and $1 in the lobby, sometimes we're able to sell other books online for, I mean, sometimes even between like $50 and $100. And so they have a seller's account, which means they'll be able to put those items online. And then we have volunteers who are very diligent about checking that account, because you have to check it daily as well. And then they'll send those items, they'll mail those items out, and then the library friends get those funds, and then those funds eventually come back to the library too. Really dedicated volunteers.
All right, the next item on our agenda is going to be our public hearing for our supplemental budget number 1. In the public hearing, this is a legal legislative hearing. We have certain requirements to meet. We have nobody signed up to speak from the public. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this particular measure? Okay, good. So we will go through the staff report, and then we will have questions from the council. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I don't normally like to do a supplemental budget quite this early.
I did everything but call the meeting to order.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
So
Yeah.
I hereby call this legislative hearing to order. This is the opportunity for abstentions and conflicts of interest. Do any of the councilors have either to announce? Thank you.
All right. Like I was saying, I don't usually like to do supplemental budgets quite this early in the season, but we had one thing with the water rights transfer that went through, so it just kind of caused us to need to do one early, and then I kind of threw in one other adjustment with Fund 14 since we were already doing this. So really, there are only 3 funds that we're changing on this. The total adjustments are the 1.5 million, bringing our total budget to 131 million. So the first fund is the water fund. We're increasing the public works expenditure appropriation by 1.5 million. And this is to account for the water fund's portion of the water rights transfer. So the water rights transfer, as you know, has been going on for about 2 years now. And we were almost certain it was going to happen last fiscal year. And then right at the very end of last fiscal year, they said, oh, the payment for it is going to be due beginning of July. So then we thought, okay, well, now the budget's out of date already. So we wanted to get this to reflect what we actually had to do with the water rights. So if you recall, ARPA was paying for a portion of it, and then the water fund picked up the remaining tab of that. So this is the 1.592 is going to be the water fund's portion of that. And then we just took it out of contingency until we did our main true up of the funds in January. I'm going to skip over to ARPA and then come back to that one since ARPA is connected. So the ARPA Fund 99, we increased the beginning fund balance because that's rolling over from last year. And if you remember from the ARPA meetings, they were paying for 1.5 million of the water rights transfer. So this is just increasing that for the public works expenditure to add that in there for their portion of the expense, and then increasing beginning fund balance that's rolling over. And then if I go back, the economic development fund, we just kind of threw in since I was already doing a supplemental budget. For the planning expenditures, we increased by 46,000. And this was for additional funds from economic development specifically for the new permitting software purchase. So we're using that for some of the licensing this year that's happening. And then for the special payments, that decreased by 211,000. We kind of did a true up of the EDRLF loans, which if you remember that had to do with the hotel loaning. So we're not expecting that balance to increase until the hotel is bringing in TLT revenue, which I think is about 2 years from now. So that one, we just wanted to get that balance to the correct balance so that community development knows what we have left for those type of business development loans. And then the offset there was just to put it in contingency. And really, that's the whole supplemental budget. It just because we were dealing with large dollar amounts with the water rights transfer, it required it to be a supplemental budget. Anybody have any questions on that?
Oh, looks like we're good. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So at this point, since there is no public testimony, I am closing public testimony. And we're ready for recommendation from the staff.
All right, I recommend you adopt resolution 2024-3944.
So this is the point for council deliberations. Mike?
I was just gonna go ahead and make a motion to accept, but we're not there yet.
Actually, it looks like we are.
Then I'll move that we accept resolution number 2024-3944.
Second.
Christine, do we need to waive
All right, it has been moved and seconded. I'm sorry. I've got to get back to my script there. Okay. We are ready for a vote, but it's going to be a roll call vote. Rachel, are you ready?
And can I catch you with a second on that again? Wait, sometimes your voice is blank. Sorry about that.
Rachel, I'm sorry. Let me back up just a minute.
Oh.
Mike, we need your ordinance or your motion to include the words, reading the, item
And
by title
actually-
only. And whether or not we're going to, waive the first reading.
This is a resolution, not an
Yes.
ordinance.
So Mayor Rosacker, I just asked that exact same question and we do not have to do that for this item because it is not an ordinance. So, yeah, thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
All right. This has been moved and seconded. Do we need a roll call vote? Let's take a roll call vote.
Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilberg,
Yes.
Mayor Rosacker,
Yes.
Counselor Cloyd,
Yes.
Counselor Carmen.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that is the end of that public hearing.
Honorable Mayor Rosacker.
Yes, sir.
Just for those who are listening, that secures senior water rights with a vintage of the 1950s for the city, which is senior to many of our competitors. And if we ever have a water issue, we can get the water and they won't be able to.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the adoption of a resolution redesigning the Newberg Enterprise Zone.
All right. Good evening, councilors. My name is James Dingwall, one of the assistant planners with the city. And tonight we're going to be looking at resolution number 2024-3937, the enterprise zone redesignation. So staff's recommendation to start off with is that the council adopt resolution number 2024-3937, redesignating the enterprise zone, and consider directing staff to initiate work on a potential expansion to the Newberg enterprise zone to include additional industrial areas within the city. This supports Council Goal 2, specifically Objective 4, removing barriers and deterrents to create new, clean, light industrial employers that will provide family wage jobs. So a little bit of background, the enterprise zone was initially designated in 2014 through Resolution 2014-3122, and Council passed a resolution providing for an employment waiver to the standard enterprise zone employment requirements. The previous boundaries of the zone included primarily South Newberg and some of the industrial areas just north of downtown. This boundary covers approximately 361 acres across 88 tax lots. When we discussed this previously in the year, we noted 100 tax lots, but this 88 reflects lot consolidations and changes that have happened since 2014. So the number of lots themselves is down slightly. The zone is primarily consisting of light industrial, heavy industrial, and mixed employment zones. Since the zone was originally designated in 2014, the city has received multiple applications and inquiries that have reached various stages of approval. However, prior to its expiration in June, the city did approve an application authorizing an investment of just under $350,000 for a light manufacturing startup. And if the zone is redesignated tonight, the next agenda item is a second application that you will consider. As a high-level overview of the enterprise zone, the program provides eligible businesses, including manufacturers, processors, shippers, and other traded sectors, a tax abatement on new investment that creates new jobs within the zone. The standard exemption is for 3 years. However, a firm may be eligible for a 4th and 5th year if higher paying jobs are created. The minimum level of investment for either the 3-year standard or extended abatement is $50,000, and new companies must create 1 job across either, while existing companies must increase 10% of their current employment. And then for that 4th and 5th year extension, those new jobs must be at 150% of the county average wage. The city does have a waiver available to the employment creation requirements, which requires either a $25 million investment or an increase in productivity with no reduction in existing workforce levels. The state also requires dedicated workforce training funding by the firm, and city requirements include an internship program and also some STEM funding for science, math, engineering, and technology programs with the local school district. The city also stipulates that a firm can only use that exemption once per exemption period, even if they invest and have other enterprise zone authorizations in that time. The firm can also receive a construction and process exemption for up to 2 years before that standard 3-year clock starts while the new investment is being constructed and installed. And then at the time of designation, so now for the city being a redesignation, the city could elect to include hotels, motels, and resorts as eligible businesses, so kind of outside the bubble of industrial or traded sector businesses. The city does not currently have that election, so hotels, et cetera, are not eligible. And the city has a 6-month window to change that decision once we submit our application to the state. As an overview of the enterprise zone redesignation process, we met with Business Oregon in January to indicate our potential interest in the zone's redesignation. Notice of a consultation meeting was given to overlapping taxing districts in April, and the consultation was held on May 1st. In June, Yamhill County adopted a resolution consenting to the city's redesignation of the zone. And that's required because part of the zone is an unincorporated territory. And then the zone itself terminated on June 30th. So any applications after that were not processed. Prior were approved. And then finally, in July, the Newberg School District set a school support fee of 15%. And this is a new requirement from the legislature, which is when a firm uses the 4th and 5th year extension, they also have to remit a portion of that abated tax back to the school district. So for the standard 3-year firms, they don't do that. Whatever chooses to get a longer benefit, they remit 15% of that back to the school district. And then following this meeting, if it's approved, we would submit the documentation to Business Oregon and begin processing applications. And then just a note, to be designated or redesignated a zone must meet at least one of some certain economic criteria relative to the city as a whole or to the metropolitan area. And that could include income levels, unemployment rate, the percentage of residents below the poverty level, or a 10-year change in population. Census data provided by Business Oregon for our application indicated that Newberg's mean income is 80% of the region. And so that's the economic criteria that we are using for the city as a whole relative to the region. And then in addition to the redesignation of the zone itself, some public comments received included a request that council consider expanding the zone to include additional industrial tax lots within the city. So currently the city has 145 industrial zone tax lots covering approximately 637 acres. So that's relative to the 88 and 360 acres currently within the zone. The process for changing that zone boundary once redesignated is largely the same as this process, with the one notable exception being we would not be required to hold a consultation meeting with taxing districts, but notice them, and then that boundary change would come back via resolution to city council and then submitted to Business Oregon. So staff's recommendation is that the city council adopt resolution number 2024-3937, redesignating the Newberg Enterprise Zone, and consider directing staff to initiate work on a potential expansion of the enterprise zone to include additional industrial areas in Newberg. Happy to answer any questions.
Let me ask one thing for clarification. Megan Perona, I'm assuming you want to talk on the next item, not this one, correct? Your public comment?
Well, if this one isn't redesignated, the other one, that's not much.
Would you like to make your public comment now?
Yes, sure.
All right, can we, thank you, come on up.
James, really good one.
Hi, I'm Megan Perona, and I'm an employee and a second generation part of ARE Manufacturing, which is a contract machine shop here in Newberg. We supply parts to ADA, DCI, and other businesses in Newberg and Yamhill County. We have over 90% of our sales are within the state of Oregon, so we truly are a local business. The next item on your agenda is our application for an enterprise zone waiver. What we're looking to do is we'd like to purchase two large pieces of equipment plus a robotic assistant for those. It's roughly $610,000. So a program like the enterprise zone, what it does is it saves us money on property taxes, and that money helps us bridge that gap between getting the equipment and then getting it up and running and actually being able to turn a profit off of that new equipment again. So our application specifically, I think over the 3 years, there's some payback stipulations in the waiver where we donate money to Newberg School District, and we also spend funds on training our employees. So once you subtract those out, the cost savings on property taxes for us will be roughly $20,000. We're also a really large proponent for youth work opportunities. And so for us, $20,000 would be two part-time high school students for the entire calendar year. So it is a very beneficial program to us and to other companies here in Newberg. As far as the waiver specifically, so we've applied for the program twice in the past. They were both unsuccessful and we paid back all of the property taxes. What we're hoping is that with the waiver, we'll be able to successfully use the program. So, yeah.
Does anybody have questions for Megan? Robin?
Why were you unsuccessful with the program before?
Part of the stipulations of the program is that you're not allowed to have your employment numbers drop. You have to increase your employment numbers over the 3 years. One of the waivers unfortunately spanned 2020. And so we laid off in 2020 like everyone else. And then the other one was just our business is a little up and down. And so it's really hard for us to predict that we can actually increase the number of employees during those 3 years. We still, even with the waiver, we still have to maintain the same level. So, we just can't promise that we're gonna grow. We just we want to stay in business. That's our goal.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I'm glad you explained that a little bit because I didn't really know much in depth of how this all worked, but so sounds like this ought to be a program that more and more businesses could take advantage of.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the redesignation wouldn't be just for us, it's for all of the
Oh, sure.
manufacturers in
Right.
Newberg, which, and I mean, obviously, like ADEC and DCI are like the big employers in town, but there's countless, 10 and under employee shops that could also benefit from the program.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know in the audience, ARE Manufacturing runs the Tiger Industries, is that?
Yeah, so we helped start Tiger Manufacturing at Newberg High School. So it's a student-run machine shop. So the students actually, they make the parts, they pay their bills, they even get paid minimum wage while they're working at school. So it's a very, it's a really unique program and very beneficial. And then out of that program, ARE, since we work so closely, we also have hired several of those students. I think from the first year that we did the program at the high school, we actually have one of those students that's still working full-time for us at our shop. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for doing the business in Newberg. I know that you guys started out very small and have grown into what you are today. I think you're a good example of what we want business to be in Newberg. So we really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you
We
guys.
really appreciate that.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Megan? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody have questions for James? Mike, go ahead. Thank you.
So how many applications do we have for this, or how many companies have actually expressed interest in this program?
So since it was designated in 2014, I believe there were 4 or 5 applications over that decade. So not particularly, high volume. And I believe the kind of rough amounts of proposed investment was around $13 million, but largely for a variety of reasons, employment or other standards. No project got all the way through. And then before the program expired in 2023, we approved a roughly $350,000 application from a more kind of startup size. So one employee just recently moved to Newberg, and then he's hiring a second staffer in July, so they should be up and running. So there's kind of a little bit more activity now, but kind of in the big picture, it hasn't been as active as some zones now, but it's kind of a good tool that we're looking to kind of increase our marketing kind of activity awareness for businesses in the city.
Please.
And I see options in the audience, so I don't want to butcher this, but I believe that in 2018, there were 3 manufacturers. I'm looking at Abisha for, make sure I'm not out of term, but I believe there are 3 manufacturers that left Newberg and went to Portland and McMinnville because they were not able to grow within Newberg, and that there is a competitive advantage to even being in Sherwood or Tigard or McMinnville from Newberg. And if we want to be able to, one, grow our business community that we have here, but then also attract new businesses so that we can pay family wage jobs, this is like a complete no-brainer. So, would you agree?
Yeah, and I think also kind of the flip side of that coin is the qualifying investment kind of are things that kind of are heavy, stay on the ground, don't drive away. So, we're kind of attracting firms, attracting employees, and then what the investment is spent on sticks around for a decent bit of time.
Well,
I think, for example, ARV's demand for, as the supply chain expands locally, which I suspect it's going to, I think they're going to knock out of the park this time. So.
all right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move we adopt resolution number 2024-3937, redesignating the Newberg Enterprise Zone, and also direct staff to initiate work on a potential expansion of the Newberg Enterprise Zone to include additional industrial areas in Newberg.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So the next item on the agenda is also you, right, James?
Yes.
And this is more specific to ARE manufacturing.
Yes, so. Yeah, so resolution number 2024-3943 is for a waiver to the enterprise zone employment requirements for ARE manufacturing. Staff's recommendation is to approve that resolution 2024-3943, waiving the employment requirements on the standard tax exemption for ARE Manufacturing Inc. based on a rise in productivity and dedicated contributions to workforce training in the Newberg Enterprise Zone. So this also supports Council Goal Objective 2, removing barriers and deterrents to new, clean, or light industrial employers that will bring family wage jobs. Looking again at the background, the enterprise zone was designated in 2014. The waiver program that you're considering tonight was designated in 2015. And then the enterprise zone was just redesignated in 2024. Again, the high level summary of the zone, it provides straight sector businesses 3 years of property tax abatement and requires job creation up to a 4th and 5th year if creating higher paying jobs. And looking at some background on the applicant, so the applicant for the employment waiver is ARE Manufacturing, as Megan mentioned, makes machine components using CNC equipment and currently employs 33 workers. The request is for the 3-year standard enterprise zone application for an approximately $600,000 investment. And then, as Megan mentioned, the ARE has been approved previously and is back again. A pre-authorization conference was held in May with city staff, ARE staff, and the Yamhill County assessor to verify eligibility and program requirements. So the employment waiver has both state and local requirements. The state requires that an investment either be at least $25 million or that the firm demonstrates an increase in productivity of at least 10% while not decreasing existing workforce. The applicant has elected to use the productivity threshold. The firm must also dedicate workforce training funds equal to at least 25% of the property tax savings for training associated with the investment itself. The funds must be used within 2.5 years, and if any funds are left unused, they are reserved for use by a locally funded job training provider. And the mechanics of both of these provisions are in exhibits A and B of the resolution. In addition to the state requirements, the city also requires that only one waiver be granted per firm in the exemption period, regardless of additional investment that may be authorized. That the firm coordinate a local internship program and donate 10% of the exemption value to a local STEM science, technology, engineering, and math program. ARE conducts extensive work with Tiger Manufacturing, and they may speak more in a comment about this application, and they will be required to verify that the internship and donation requirements are being met when they submit their other exemption documentation each year. So staff's recommendation is that council approve resolution number 2024-3943, waiving the employment requirements on a standard tax exemption for ARE Manufacturing Inc. based on a rise in productivity and dedicated contributions to workforce training in the Newberg enterprise zone. To answer any questions about this.
Are there any questions for Jim?
So what is the process? So once they come to you, is there a fee to apply? There's the application and then you submit it to the state.
Yep,
Is that
so,
correct?
Newberg has not, imposed a fee on applications thus far. When somebody submits it, we set up a pre-authorization conference with the applicant, the city, and the EML County Assessor's Office, because while we manage more of the programmatic elements, the Assessor's Office handles the tax calculations and more of the financial part. So we have a meeting to kind of establish that they're eligible, that they have, understand all the programs. And then if they are requesting an employment waiver, they need a separate resolution like this. Some firm who does not request that can get authorized without this kind of second resolution. And then if council passes it tonight, we would go and process the application on the city's behalf, forward it to the county for their approval, and then forward that package to the state.
Robert?
So it's a 3-year process. So is it at the end of the 3 years it's evaluated, or what if, how do you determine if they're meeting? So what if they don't meet those requirements? Do they have to pay the taxes at the end, or how does that work?
There's a couple options. So annually they'll submit kind of an application for the assessed tax to be exempted, I believe April 1st, to the county assessor. And then they would the county and community development will coordinate, make sure that they're meeting the internship, employment requirements, etc. If they aren't meeting it, then there's a couple pathways in the state ORS. Either they may just repay the entire sum back to the county of all the taxes abated, or they can pay the city 1 year's amounts and have it be done that way. But so it's evaluated on an ongoing basis, not all once.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. In the application materials, Exhibit C, now on page 4 of that, you have some figures in regard to income per capita per household. How did you come up with those figures?
So those were provided by the state business department in conversations with, I believe that's for the redesignation application. And so that is they kind of generate each year the kind of universe of census data that they provide to jurisdictions to use for this renewal process. And that was a economic criteria that we qualified under, and so he provided that. It's from the 2018 to 2022 American Community Survey 5-year estimates.
And so it followed that's one little piece of the census, right? And it focuses, those numbers focus on per capita income by race.
I believe the highlighted sections are just the overall total mean income. So that while the census on export does have that breakdown for that census question, the kind of general line item that is the 80% is the kind of total overall for the city.
Can I make a motion, or are you? Where are you at?
Still looking at those figures.
Okay, we'll pause.
Please, did you want to make a motion?
Sure. All right. I will move to approve resolution authorizing a waiver to standard enterprise zone employment requirements based on a rise in productivity and dedication contribution to workforce training for ARE manufacturing.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to, pass resolution 2024-3943. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you, the motion passes. So, the next item on our agenda is the resolution to authorize expenditures for extensive road repairs on Second Street. Well, welcome. Thank you, Abhishek.
Hi, folks. This is going to be a resolution to authorize expenditures for extensive road repairs on Second Street. The expenditures are going to be north of $100,000, and therefore I'm here to get that authorization. At this time, the exact price is not yet known, but I can say that the slurry and crack seal work will be less than $172,000. We're still in negotiations with the company about exactly who will remove the mastic, whether it will be us, or whether it might have to be a subcontractor. That might add a small amount of additional cost, but we're going to keep this company, which is the Doolittle company, to $172,000 or less. The background to this is that since March of 2024, the city's engineering division has been reorganized to try to get more cost controls and more efficiency and transparency. At this time, the city manager has become the project manager for RFPs, that is requests for proposals that are connected to street repairs funded by the TUF. The city manager moved as quickly as he could to get bid comparisons for road surface repairs, and the Doolittle company was the winner for that class of repair. And of course, as explained before to council, this is the approach whereby we ask different companies what they can do the best and cheapest, and then we use a sort of an a la carte version of how we would do this. We can choose which company can give us the best rate and hopefully get better cost control. I also just wanted to let you know that my objective is to try to get some grind and inlay work done near Edwards School if I don't run out of time, because it's hard at this time of year to get companies to commit to work right now. Next year, we will have had a whole winter to plan what streets we're going to do, and therefore we will be able to get a lot more done next year because we won't have to do the RFP again. Those prices are good for 4 years. So I've showed you that. Now, there is a price escalation from year to year, but we're starting from a known negotiation point every year so we can go faster. And that was the objective. The fiscal impact on this one, my objective is to greatly extend the life expectancy of Second Street before it gets out of control, before it's more degraded than it's already becoming. This could save the city perhaps something in the region of $5 million if we had to do a substantial removal for the whole length of Second Street, if we had to grind and inlay the entire street or even rebuild. If we had to rebuild, it would be a lot more than $5 million. It aligns with council goals. Within this, the council objective 4, ensuring the city has good long-term financial planning, is a relevant point to think about. And therefore, staff is asking if you would most kindly approve this resolution so I can get those 2 days of work from the Doolittle company, because they told me they don't want to be working in Oregon in September. They want to be heading out to Arizona or wherever. So we were able to squeeze them and ask for 2 days of work. Any questions, folks?
I'll just say that I thank you. It's a lot of work to redesign your bidding process and to really try to drive low prices. And I know it's easy to get just fixated in on a few different vendors or customers that are supporting you. So thank you for doing that. And I'm stoked about this one. Considering where I live.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Eric.
I move we approve resolution 2024-3945.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2024-3945. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ken.
Let's go ahead and take 5-minute break. Robert, bear with us. You're next. 5-minute break, get back in here and let's keep going. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is a tree ordinance issue with Robert Soppy.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Robert Suppy, local resident, and it's really not a tree ordinance issue. It's an issue of policy. I want to first apologize to the council and staff for all the time that's been taken for this. I had hoped for just a really simple process. I mean, seriously, I thought you guys in 15 minutes could have discussed this, and if you agreed, it would have been resolved. But it's followed a very different path, and I apologize for that. You all should have received my details on this in your packet a week ago. Feel free to ask any questions if it wasn't clear. Because of that, I'm going to try to be really brief on this. About 25 years ago, we had 5 street trees planted on the planter strip. This was and still is voluntary. They were not required, and they still aren't required. 2 of the trees needed to be removed, so I was unusual. I followed code and actually got a permit to remove the trees. I understand that's pretty uncommon. Part of the permit approval process added a new requirement that I install replacement trees, even though there was not a specific requirement for them before or now. Based on an estimate I received from a tree installation company, the cost of replacing those 2 trees is $1,500 to $3,000. My objection is not to the actual code regarding this. Staff is allowed, but not required, to direct me to replace the trees. My objection is that staff made the replacement a new requirement that never existed before. Whether or not the replacement of street trees is required is a matter of policy. As you all know, setting policy is one of the main functions of the council. That's exactly why I raised this issue to the council before. I don't know where this appeal process comes from, but I'm using that approach as it was dictated to me, and I'm trying to be very accommodating. My request to you is to have the council recognize, number one, that this is a policy issue, and that if you agree with my position, then I would think it appropriate to inform the city manager that the city policy for the replacement of street trees is that it should not be a new requirement if there is no specific requirement for such replacement. The community development director would then choose how to deal with the council's stated policy. That's all I'm asking, is just let the city manager know you don't think these trees this should be a requirement when it never was before. Thank you for your consideration. Is that brief enough?
That's perfect.
Thank you very much. For me.
So the reason we are taking this course is because I think we probably agree with you on, we've not polled the city council on this issue, but we don't want to just fix it for you. We want to fix it for the city for the future. So bear with us.
If I may?
Yes.
My request is not about me. My request is that this is an established policy for everybody. I'm not the only one involved in this. Yes.
Thank you. Will, did you have something you want to say about this?
Yes, and so first of all, just to be clear, some of the remarks that Mr. Soppy made, all the remarks actually he made are accurate. Your remarks are always, almost invariably, perfectly well researched, and I always find myself in agreement with the vast majority of the things that you register. We've heard the remarks on the issue of this tree, but also on its wider implications. Now, under our municipal code 12.05.260, it does indeed say that the staff member may require the replacement, but not that they must order a replacement. It is may. you're correct. Thirdly, however, there is no right of appeal as it appears in 12.05.260, but also there is no civil penalty to be found in 12.05.440. And as the planning director stated, there would be no way for us to coerce Mr. Suppy to put back the tree. There's no coercion mechanism because the code has no penalty in it. Okay, now given the fact that we have had a lot of public comment and questions around our tree code recently, lots of them, not from you, Mr. Suppy, but many correspondents have questioned our tree code. And given the fact that in the recent Supreme Court Sheets case, which was settled on April the 12th, 2024 in the Supreme Court, a case whose settlement does draw into question permits of this type, of their legal validity with that Supreme Court ruling, under the potentiality of a constitutional claims or takings possible risk, hazard, shall we say hazard, I believe that the best course of action, given the upswell of public interest, given the Supreme Court ruling that we've just seen, would be for us to have a motion from council to pause all actions of this sort while staff can do a thorough investigation of this code, its intent, its constitutionality within our changed framework, and after doing so, come back with suggested code changes once the will of council is known. And a motion to pause is what staff's recommendation would be on this matter, because there's a lot of variables here.
I so move.
I just assume that's not required to put a tree there. If the landowner, property owner doesn't want to put trees back, then why should we do it? I mean, and it's right now, it's not in the code to require it, so just, I don't know why we ought to make a bigger deal out of it, and I don't wanna push anything on a property owner that doesn't need to be pushed on. It's my feeling.
Sure.
I second Peggy's motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right. Since there's no further discussion, it has been moved and seconded that we put a pause on enforcement of this while staff takes up the issue and works it out. Yes, correct.
So,
yes, Mike?
So we're just, okay, so we're just putting a complete pause on it. We're not gonna make him do anything about it until we have a chance to look at the whole code, correct? Okay, all right.
So, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Robert, you're off the hook for the time being. So the next item is a continuation from a meeting to, at the beginning of July. I have 3 public comment forms filled out. So let's start with Tina Scott.
I'll just wait till the end, let our attorney talk first.
Okay, you want to let him speak for you?
No.
And then I think Matt was signed up as well. Matt, do you want to let him speak for you too? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, she
So-
said before me, not for me. So she said I speak for me, not for me. So the public comments need to come first.
You may not get a chance to speak after he's done, but if you want to speak, now is your time. You have 5 minutes.
Excuse me, Mayor Rosacker.
Okay, all right. Mr. Gunn,
Excuse me, Mayor Rosacker. Mr. Gunn's comment is public comment as well. So
I
Mr.
understand.
Gunn is comment, okay, that's all.
doing the same. All right.
Before I start, Mr. Mayor,
Well, go ahead.
before I start,
Tell the audience who you are.
my name is Michael Gunn. I represent the estate of Monty Bolin as far as this hardship application is concerned. Matt Bolin is the personal representative. Before I start, what are the ground rules on how long I have?
Well, here's, okay. I will give you 5 minutes to speak. If you have new information, we'll even consider letting you go 10 minutes. Or what I would prefer to do is have a conversation with you and council whereby we work together to find the best possible solution for all the parties involved. If that's acceptable, then we'd like you just to sit right there and work with us to get that done. Is that acceptable, or do you want to just have your?
I don't have a problem working with you if you will give me 5 minutes to start out with. Well, here's the thing, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I need to say that everything tonight is with the reservation of rights. Ms. Taylor, Mr. Walker, and I have had many discussions about this.
It's gone.
Ms. Taylor can counsel you on that later. We obviously don't want to be in any legal battle with the city, but I have to do that to protect these clients. I need to make the city aware, hopefully the city aware of our position as to how, and this is with all due respect, how upset we are about the way this has gotten to where it is. And I'm not here to try to cast aspersions, etc. But I think it's very important that the council and you and the citizens understand what's happened to bring us here tonight. And if you will give me 5 minutes to do that, I will be glad to try to work with you on anything else as far as any questions are concerned, etc. I've submitted 7 pages. I hopefully have addressed all the concerns. I will be upfront with you right now. One of the concerns was whether or not a property or the residents can remain on the property once it's annexed into some form of industrial. It's apparent I misspoke at the prior hearing. It was not intentional to try to do that. It was my fault. I didn't research the code enough. Mr. Siegel and I have had discussions about that. He said, I'm pretty sure I corrected you in front of the council already. But be that as it may, I will take responsibility for that. The code specifically says that a residence can remain as a non-conforming residence with any kind of other kind of zoning. It's not a permitted use. There's a caveat, you can't enlarge it, etc., but it can remain. However, that's not the be all end all of this. But back to my point at hand here. And we walked out of that meeting on July 3rd. This started long before July 3rd. It started with dialogue with the staff in April as to this situation. Mr. Siegel and I have had extensive discussions on this. We submitted an application in good faith. We had a staff recommendation for approval, albeit it was not for approval, waiver of the SECs, but it was for approval of the hardship application as we submitted it. There was extensive discussion amongst the council that night. I know what your position was, Mr. Mayor, and I respect your position. You obviously were very much against the situation as far as not requiring an annexation into the city. You're entitled to your opinion. It was a 6-1 vote against you, okay? And We walked in, it was a 4-3 vote to waive 50% of the SECs. We walked out of there with that in mind. Mr. Siegel and I, long before that, had worked out a calendar. If you want to post number one up there, if you will, please. We worked out a calendar
It's gonna be,
that,
I know it's down here.
number one should be the calendar.
Yeah,
That's my.
it's just your
While
letter.
she's doing that. There was a calendar of the events associated with the matter. And it was all triggered assuming we got approval. And she can't find my calendar there. But at any rate,
That's on me. We'll get it.
there's a calendar that Mr. Siegel did that had to be revised because of his conflict with being on vacation, et cetera. But this matter was supposed to come to the council for final approval on the 5th, which is tonight. If in fact we got approval by the council, which we did on the 3rd, that had to be changed to the 19th. However, the council directed Mr. Siegel and staff to work on getting documents prepared. That was going to be my undertaking to mitigate the expenses because one of the conditions was, as I told you before, we had to pay Miller Nash's reasonable attorney fees incurred in this. So we went out in good faith and we spent money, time, et cetera, on preparing these documents. I got one of them, Mr. Siegel, for review. He was ready to send it to Mr. Walker or Ms. Taylor for final approval. I get an email from him on the night of the 15th. It said 2:37, but I didn't read it until 4 or something. And it said, basically it's saying the council, here's what the council is undertaking tonight. There's an add-on to the agenda, 14 enclaves, which are quote islands of property that's outside the city, but is either surrounded or partially surrounded by property inside the city that's evidently receiving city services. The request for council action specifically says no action will be taken tonight at all, period. It's only for discussion. I couldn't even get to the meeting that night, but I attempted to watch it on YouTube, and I found not on YouTube, on Zoom, but it wouldn't work. So at any rate, the situation is, I get an email from him the next morning that says, last night the council voted unanimously to pause the prior approvals and directed staff to cease all work, period. First thing I do is call him when I say, there's my calendar there, okay? That was what was drafted by Mr. Siegel, and as you can see, there's dates that have been changed there, et cetera. But we have spent money relying on that prior approval by the council. First thing I do is call Mr. Siegel and I say, what is going on here? What's happened? He said, I don't know. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know. He said, this is what happened. And I said, I got to see that. I have to view the council meeting. He said, we weren't asked to provide any more information or anything. He said it'll be up on YouTube in a couple days. Fortunately, it was up the next night. I think it was Wednesday morning. I finally watched it 3 times. Councilor Holloman was doing it remote. The council only got through discussing about 6 of the enclaves. And it was apparent, again, with due respect to you, Mr. Mayor, that you want properties annexed into the city. You correct me if I'm wrong at the end, and I will apologize. You want land properties annexed into the city if they're receiving any city services, period. Okay? And that you're entitled to that opinion. I mean, but what I'm saying is that the council quit analyzing these at either 6 or 7. Ours was number 11, never got discussed. And then the power goes out for a minute and a half, whatever. No, it's obvious you were still discussing. The next thing that comes on is Mr. Walker sitting here saying, I think you need to move for a reconsideration.
Mr. John, your time is up. We didn't accomplish anything here. This is what I was trying to prevent with you filibustering. If you would like, there are 2 more people that want to make public comment. If either of you want to do it now, come on up.
I just wanted the council to be aware of why we are.
You put it, we read it, we all read it.
Okay.
You gave it to us. It's in our packet. We read it. We understand that. It has very little to do with the issue that we're looking at today.
Actually, it does. He can have Matt's time, public time. Give him another
If
5
you-
minutes
okay.
to let him finish.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. If you want to make public comment, come on up and talk in front of the microphone. You're not gonna, we don't do this in the back of the room. Is that no?
I want Mr. Gunn to continue on.
You want to give him your 5 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, you can do what you want, but if we continue in this vein, all you're doing is wasting time. We're not even addressing the issues that we're here to talk about. So this is the final chance. I would rather have a conversation with you than to have you dictate to us what we did wrong.
I'm ready to address the issues at hand.
Okay,
Okay, as I see it, there are three issues here.
excuse me.
I'm sorry.
The way this works in my council is everybody gets the opportunity to speak once before anybody speaks twice. And I would appreciate it if you would wait until you're acknowledged before you start to talk. All right. So at the July 3rd meeting, we were missing some vital information. The first one is the one that you just talked about. The house does not have to be removed ever. The second one is the water meter in question. The water meter that you were, that Monty Boland was given the permission to have installed, was never installed. The third issue that we had was that 4 of the counselors up here have no experience in this part of governance. So I asked staff to add an island property 101 subject to the next meeting. What are they? How many are they? Where are they? That was what you saw. We didn't need to go through all 22 properties. We went through half a dozen, and Councilor Carmen pointed out that, all right, we've seen enough of this. He was correct. So I apologize that the speed of government is slower than you want it to be. But because people would accuse us of making backdoor deals, we have to make all these decisions in open meeting. And that's why we had the item on the agenda last meeting. That's why it's back here now. Now, 3 of us sat down together, excuse me, 4 of us, including myself, Councilor Wheatley, Peggy, the city manager and I met for a different meeting, and then we had a discussion about this. We felt like now that we knew some of the facts, we should offer a compromise. And most of the councilors have not even heard of this compromise at this point. This is new to them, just like it is to you. But what we came up with was that the state should go ahead and install the water meter that was never installed, paying the cost of doing it and the SDCs, just like the Monty Boland had agreed to do. The city, because the city recently had set a precedent by allowing properties to be annexed at the city's expense, the city would cover that cost. So we're asking you to go ahead and work with the city to begin the annexation process. The septic, we have no problem with you continuing to use as long as it's in good working order. If these three things are done, you're going to have a property that is actually worth the price that you're trying to get for it on the market. So there you go. Mike?
I don't like any of this. First of all, I don't think none of the information that I think has been brought forward is of any value to have us stop what we already agreed to and put undue pressure on them. For what reason? Because we want to get it inside the city limits. It'll come inside the city limits at a proper time. And I'm not going to go along with this. We need to go back and honor what we agreed to at the last meeting. And if we don't, I'm not voting for this at all.
Please.
I'm with Mike, so, there will always be times as a council that we're not fully prepared or don't feel like we have all the information that we wish to have, and the proper time to ask for that is before we vote. And I am so uncomfortable with this conversation, and I'm concerned that you just said that 4 of you had a side meeting conversation outside of this meeting when that's a quorum. Okay. But that is how that is how this has felt to me. So I can imagine how it feels to the applicants, that there's side conversations happening, and I'm still at a loss as to what the motive for this is. To rescind the original vote. It feels very much like it has been mentioned in the meeting on the 3rd, that this would be an opportunity to increase our tax base. That is not a policy that I stand for, and I don't think it's a policy you stand for, so we should correct that on the record, that we are not trying to increase our tax base. And for me, this is a policy issue, and this is why I voted the way that I voted the first time. You have to balance when you have competing policy priorities. For me, property rights, super important, but also bringing in industrial land. This is a plausible amount of land to do something with if the properties around it were also in light industrial annexed in. But for me, I voted the way that I voted intentionally, even though it was a difficult vote, because the applicants went to the extent that they went. And we made a call, and I feel like coming back around, it's a bait and switch. And I don't want constituents to feel like yes, the process of government is slow, but I also want them to trust government. And I want them to trust my word, and I wanna apologize that you've had to go through what you do, and I'm sure had to expend money that you weren't planning to expend. And if we wanna have an island conversation, we can have that, but this was the exception and the hardship that we already granted, and that's the vote I'm staying on.
I just have a question for you, Mike. Does this 3-pronged compromise, is there any appeal to you at all, or is that, okay?
Let me just address it this way, if I may, okay? And I'm not trying to do any kind of mudslinging. This is a blindsided thing to us, okay? To hit us with this tonight, what I'm concerned as Councilor Holloman is, there was a meeting, albeit the city manager was involved, but there was a meeting with 2 councilors and the mayor and the city manager to discuss this matter, okay? Now, the last thing the applicants want is a big legal battle with the city. We just want what we got approved originally. I'm digressing on this, but I am concerned about that. I'm not in a position to say that now. If we were agreeable to annexation, we wouldn't have come in with this hardship application to start out with. I mean, and with all due respect, this compromise is one-sided, okay? You annex your property in as industrial. The mayor is basing his statement on this letter from Mr. Higgins, which I have addressed in my lengthy, not my lengthy, but in my reply. And the mayor makes a carte blanche statement. Hey, it's worth what you can get basically outside the city. That is an absolute incorrect statement, in my opinion, okay? And to put us on the spot and say, are you agreeable to a compromise in an open city council meeting when this is the first we've ever heard about it? Just like we didn't know anything about this motion for reconsideration. What the mayor should have done, if there was, as Councilor Holloman said, if there was an issue that anybody was uncomfortable with, there should have never been a vote taken that night, okay? Should have said, we're gonna pause this, we're gonna go out and get some more information, make it available to the applicant, but we're not gonna close this and we're not gonna discuss it tonight. Yet you went ahead and took a vote, 6-1 and 4-3. And I'm with 100% with Councilors McBride and Holloman, and I would hope that everybody else would have the courage to do that. So, no, I don't have the authority to accept that tonight. I would never accept anything like that without discussing it with the clients whatsoever. I can't imagine you would expect us to do that, Mayor.
Okay, by the way, the reason that it didn't get out in public, this would have been on the 19th meeting, as you know. But the reason it would be on the 19th was because Scott couldn't be there. You asked us to move it up to this meeting, which we accommodated you. That's the only reason that you didn't get this information and invite at that time. Anybody else? Derek?
You know, I'm also a little uncomfortable with how this is all transpired. It seems a little unorthodox. And I haven't heard anything that's been presented that makes me want to change my feelings on my vote from the last time that we met.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Counselor. Could you just repeat that last part? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I said I haven't heard anything here that's made me change my feelings or my vote from the last time that we met.
Thank you.
This is just an aside. I want to be really clear. When the mayor and city manager and Robin and I met, we met to discuss the short-term rental upcoming meeting, open house. So people, and we did that. And then as we're chatting, this thing came up and that thing came up, you know, conversations have a way of doing that. There was no intention of having a secret meeting at all about this. And I will admit, I'm still in the learning mode.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you were in our position right now and the mayor said, well, here's a compromise, what do you think about it? Having never heard anything about it whatsoever. I just hope you can somehow place yourself in our position on that.
No, I would have the same answer you do.
Well,
just to reiterate what Peggy said, and as a matter of honor, no decision was made. And our meeting that we had was in subject that Peggy talked about, and also about the next upcoming newsletter. It was not a council deliberative session. We don't do side meetings, but the mayor obviously has the right to control the agenda. That's one of his powers. So at the next meeting, he asked for us to review island territories. And so therefore, that is one of the key powers of the mayor.
So I would like to take this opportunity to restate some of the facts. Originally, we were under the impression that the water meter in question had been installed at the expense of Monty Bolton. Well, we have come to find out that meter has never been installed. These SDCs have never been paid. The fee for the meter has never been paid. That was part of the basis that council felt that they were being treated unfairly, was because they had some sort of a shared water agreement. Well, guess what? A shared water, it's illegal in Newberg to tap on a water source on one lot, provide it to the other. It's against our Newberg municipal code. So once we figured out that the meter had never been installed and the water, Mr. Boland did exactly what he intended to do in the first place, because that was what he had asked for. It was not fair to the rest of the city. We have a $40 million water plant to build. These SDCs are part of what pays for that. Everything else goes on to the ratepayers. So if we give the Bolands this break on SDCs, we're in effect charging every other water payer in Newberg. Same thing with the cost of installing the meter. It would have been less expensive had Monty have done it 14 years ago than it is today, but he still would have had to pay for it, and it would have cost a good portion of what this is today. The other item I had was so what we attempted to show at the last meeting with our little 101 island properties, is that this is something that every city in the state has to deal with. And the only way that you can deal with it is when the property in question comes to you for hardship, you make it so that they have to hook up at some point. That was done. Monty Bolin agreed that when he no longer lived there, it would be annexed into the city. Now, I know that Mr. Gunn made the case that you can't take the contract's contents literally. I think that that is probably not true. I think contracts are written to be taken literally. So those are my reasons why I don't feel that we are going back. And by the way, I have talked to our council. We're well within our rights here to revisit this issue. No decision was made other than to have our staff work on it. Very little time has been spent on this for the city anyway, other than staff time. So those are the reasons that, in my opinion, as council, in fairness to all the citizens of our town, that everybody who receives services in our town needs to pay the same costs as everybody else in town. There's little old ladies here that pay these fees every month, and there's no reason in the world why other people shouldn't have to pay them as well. So, thank you.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are you saying there was never a meter installed?
I'm saying that the meter that the hardship application was for never got installed. And as evidence of that, the meter that was installed that you're sharing water with was installed on the lot that was in the city, did not need a hardship application. Now, I acknowledge that Monty did on his application ask to be able to install the meter, if I remember the wording right, in the city limits. And there was something about that. He wanted to do exactly what he did. That wasn't what the council gave him. The council agreed to allow him to install the meter at his expense and in the SDCs, which he never did.
Well, if I may reply, the information as far as the SDCs came from the city as far as, I mean, I've never verified that, came from the city, that presumably Monty Bolin paid the hookup, the installation fees and the SDC fees. I mean, Mr. Music did, he had to get the information on the meter, he had to go back to where this is back in April, he had to go back to where the bill started being sent, which was in April of 2007. So the meter got installed, obviously, you know, I don't think neither you or I can say why that meter got installed on 1900, other than that was what the application said for. I agree with you 100% that normally the city would never allow a meter to be installed on property inside the city to service property outside the city, but that's what happened in that situation.
Well, that's my point. That's what Monty did. That's what Monty wanted to do before he made the application. But the agreement with the city was for 901 McKern Court. There is no meter on 901 McKern Court. The city did not give them the authorization to use a meter that wasn't on that lot. They would not have done that. If you want to verify that, Dan is still around. Ask him.
Okay. My issue is more around process. So I understand what you're saying and the concerns that you've brought forward. But my issue is that we made a vote with the information that we were given. There will always be more information that comes about. And sometimes you wish you voted a different way. I've done that many times. That being said, I'm very curious, and I'm not going to ask for this right now, but I am going to say I'm curious how this information came about after the vote. And it is our job to ensure that a water meter is installed in the correct place. We take ownership and responsibility. No? Why would we not have a verification process of where a meter is installed for 20 years?
Well, Russ is sitting over there and could attest to you that no water meter gets installed without somebody going down and getting a permit. They absolutely do not. The city makes the tap. The city puts the tap where the permit says the city is going to put the tap. There's no mistake on where it was done. It was purposely done on that lot, which is not the meter that is the subject of this discussion.
But who did the tap on the lot?
Well,
The city is my point.
yeah, but the city, I mean, that was a different meter on a different permit. That was not the meter that was authorized by this hardship case, and that's the basis for coming out. And to answer your question, when did I figure this out? It was actually 2 days after the last meeting that I realized that that the meter in question was on the wrong lot. So it was by research that I did on my own that I figured out that is not the meter that was authorized.
Okay, if I can just finish. So, and thank you for that. But I think that my concern is that there is a pattern developing that I think that we as a council need to make a collective decision that we're going to change course, which is that the applicant of a hardship, of a property sale needs to be noticed. It is best practice, needs to be informed. If we're coming into public session, it's a bad look, in my opinion. The fact that the property owners or the developers that all placed bids on the Butler property were not noticed that we were going to be moving in, same thing. I'm allowed to say that. We didn't have a conversation after the Wilcutt's conversation. So I do think that this is a process issue. And Will, I'm sorry, I'm allowed to say what my opinion is without being. So again, I do think that we need to acknowledge the fact that Mr. Gunn was not provided this compromise deal. My time on council, the best practice would be to have that deal discussed with Mr. Gunn before he walks into an open session so that he has time to speak with his applicants about the deal. And this has been a compromise conversation that I've been aware of, but not known exactly what the compromise is for the last couple of weeks. So I do think it's ample time to give the respect to the applicant that we've already made a decision on to understand what the compromise we're proposing is. So I understand this is an uncomfortable conversation. It just feels like I don't understand why we're going back recourse on this when the decision has already been made.
Well, I agree with Elise. And the fact that there was a water meter that, Mayor, you thought was going to be on a different piece of property, we already knew that. I mean, at least I understood that. That I understood exactly where that existing water meter was. And so again, I just, the whole process isn't good. And if it was me, I'd be really pissed. And so, you know, we council, they are also on a reverse mortgage. Those things are horrible. And so they also are under pressure to do something, you know, or they're gonna lose that house. Remember, we all heard that last time. And so I think we need to bring this to an end. And I'm gonna call for the question that council, let's move forward and let's agree to our original vote that we voted on and be done with this. And I want the council to step up. Are you willing to do that now? And if so, let's get on with it. Well, then I'll make a motion that this council agrees to the original agreement that we did, what was a 6-1 vote. What was that, July 3rd? And we stick with that and move forward.
So, okay. Is there a second? Okay. It's time for discussion. Now we're talking about the first, we're gonna vote these two separate issues, I suppose. We're talking about the one that we voted 6-1, which was the direction we gave to staff to go ahead and start working towards this hardship application. So, before we vote, I would like to remind everybody on council that the original agreement was made by the landowner, the property owner. And the agreement specifically stated that he would install the meter at his cost and pay full SDC. It also said that upon him leaving the property, and he did, God rest his soul, that the house would be, the property would be annexed into the city. Now, you bring up it is not the city's responsibility to help fix what you called a bad deal. The truth is, this house is worth plenty of money. We are, as a industrial property in Newberg, there are very few properties like this, but every contractor that wants to live and have a business in Newberg would very much like to have a property that they can park their cars on the grass without anybody complaining. They can start making noise before 8 o'clock in the morning without anybody complaining. This is the proper zone for an industrial property. This is the highest and best use for this property. And in my opinion, it's going to make it easier to sell if it is annexed into the city and is industrial property. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing no further discussion, time to vote. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
For council, when I talked to James earlier in the week or last week, I thought he made it clear that, like if I voted no for the SDC waiver, that I could not vote on that topic. Is that correct?
Can you ask that one more time?
So I was in the minority in that vote. James, I thought, said that because I was in the minority, I didn't get the opportunity to vote for like if it's going to be set up in two different parts, like if we vote again on the SDC waiver, that I don't get to vote, and whoever else said no.
So I have some information about this. James said that the council had the right to change its mind. I do not know the answer to the specific sentence you just placed on the microphone, but I do know that he said that council had the right to change its mind on this issue. And therefore, using logic but not legal jurisprudence, I would assume that would mean that if there's a new vote on SDCs, that you've got the right to vote whichever way you see fit. But that's what I know, is he's told me that council has the right to change its mind on this issue.
Is there any further discussion? All right. Since there is none, it has been voted or moved and seconded that Mike, please state it again.
That we go back to the original passage of this hardship, hardship water request that was done on July 3rd. That's what I want to do.
All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Well, all right, the motion passes. So let's talk about the SDC. Anybody want to make a motion on that? Mike.
I'll make a motion that we go to the original plan, which was we would waive 50% of the SDCs as discussed and voted on at the July 3rd meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we waive 50% of the SDCs. All in favor, or is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your hand. All opposed, same sign. All right, so we reverse the SDC you're gonna get your hardship waiver and, I guess not have to annex into the city. Thank you. I'll bet you're looking forward. Waste management is next. Who is presenting on this? A committee. Welcome.
Hey. I'd like to say you saved the best for last, but
Oh, you did save the best for last.
All right, good evening, Mayor Rosacker and city councilors. My name is Dave Huber, and I'm WM's Public Sector Manager. And for those of you that have been around for a while, I am formerly the district manager of our Newberg operations here for almost 10 years. Along with me this evening, I have my colleagues, Jason Willie and Mike Jeffries, who I'd like to introduce
Good evening,
themselves.
Mike Jeffries, Area Pricing Director. I help put the detailed cost report together and help with the rate making process.
Good evening, I'm Jason Willie. I'm the district manager for Newberg operations. Mr. Huber?
Yes, thanks, Jason. And we also, in the audience, we also have our district manager, Greg Johnson, in the back, who is overseeing our Washington County operations, as well as Adam Winston, who is our director of operations for our Oregon and Washington areas. So they're here with us as well. So for this evening, first, I want to thank you for your time. As you recall, we were in front of you on June 17th to review our detailed cost report, which Mike plans to review again, but we also want to provide you with a full operations report, which consists of the following. If second slide, please. A review of our various collection services, updates and volumes at our Newberg transfer station, the annual report from our 2023 detailed cost report, rate comparisons, which will help show you what other municipalities and cities are rates are compared to Newberg's, the value of the WM franchise and benefits of our partnership, and then we'll end it with any questions that you may have as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason Willie, and he will talk about our collection and transfer station services.
Good evening, WM Collection Services here for Newberg. We offer residential, commercial, and industrial. Industrial are the large 20, 30, and 40-yard containers that are typically delivered to large businesses or to the wineries during harvest season. We've been operating in Newberg since 2010 as WM. We service the following customers. We have 6,710 residential customers, and we're growing grew at 3.5% from 2022. With the residential service, we offer weekly trash, bi-weekly recycling, and yard debris services. Subscription glass is at 52% participation rate here in Newberg. Along with that, we have 557 commercial customers, up 1.5% since 2022, with weekly trash and recycling services. The industrial drop box that we offer for municipal solid waste, construction, C&D material, recycling, and the grape skins that we try to send to one of the local facilities to turn into garden compost, which is getting ready for harvest here in the near future. Next, thank you. The Newberg Transfer Station. Materials accepted at the Newberg Transfer Station are solid waste materials, dry waste materials, and recycling materials. We also have the public recycling depot I'm sure a lot of you have used in the past. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 to 5. Many services provided for the hard to recycle materials, i.e. the electronics, the e-waste, the TVs, the computers, that stuff that's hard to get rid of. The fluorescent light bulbs that we all have in our offices and our homes, we offer recycling service for that. Along with that, with household batteries. and the standard cardboard and tin and plastic and glass there as well. 2023, the volumes that went through our transfer station, we did 41,108 tons of solid waste or municipal solid waste. We did 20,411 tons of C&D construction debris. Along with that, we recycled 5,974 tons. And we also had 13,260 cubic yards of grape skins transported from the local wineries to be composted for yard for compost. Facility updates, the transfer station, since we've acquired the business in 2010. We have expanded the transfer station to accommodate more vehicles up there to dump on a daily basis. As you can see, the picture there is a stormwater enhancement project that we put on the backside of the property to collect our stormwater and filter it out before it goes back into the local streams. Additionally, we've increased our summer hours. We open an hour earlier from Memorial Day to Labor Day at 7 a.m. Trying to get some of those contractors through there a little faster before the heat gets hot in the evenings and get more customers through the facility as possible. Mr. Jeffries?
All right. Yeah, that was our lazy river. We like to refer to it as, we don't get a lot of inner tubes on it, but it does help protect the environment and making sure all those leachate from the transfer station are taken out of the streams and are processed to the wastewater treatment. As we were here before, we talked about our detailed cost report, and for 2023, we came in at 6.7%, and we kind of had a discussion around what a reasonable rate of return is. And, within the state of Oregon, a reasonable rate of return for collection operations is anywhere between 8 and 12%. So we're clearly outside of that range, and that's why we had requested a rate increase of 3.81%. And this was to help with some increased costs associated with disposal costs and processing charges associated with recycling, increase in labor costs for our drivers, and some increase in fuel costs. In addition to that, we also had received some new trucks that we had taken into consideration the cost of the new trucks, the depreciation, and then offsetting our maintenance costs associated with those new trucks. So in taking the new trucks into consideration, we actually cut our maintenance costs by almost $100,000 since our 2023 spend. So, so for the most part, what that kind of puts us in a position where we'd like a rate increase of 3.8%. And, we can go to the next slide and kind of give you an idea of what those rates look like when compared to the surrounding communities. So the most common service in Newberg is the 35-gallon roll cart, and current rate is $23.39. And the increase we're talking about is 89 cents. So the new rate would be $24.28. And when you compare that rate to Yamhill County, Washington County, Sherwood, and McMinnville, it's definitely the best bargain in town. And if you compare that to all the rates that are up there, you'll find that Newberg has probably the best rates. And I like to compliment Jason and what's your name? Dave on their running of the transfer station and the collection operations over the last 10 years, because they have really done a nice job in doing some conversions. And when we first acquired the Newberg operations, the commercial was picked up with rear loaders, and we made a conscious effort to switch that over to front load containers and trucks, which is a heck of a lot more efficient and helped keep rates down. We have started seeing some nice growth as far as the construction here in the city, and that additional new business is actually helping keep rates down as well. But again, we continue to see some cost pressures with CPI and just inflation in general. But for the most part, these guys have done a great job in keeping the rates down. And so with that, that's why we're here before you, to try to keep the rates low, because we find that it's a lot easier to ask for these, single digit increases versus the 10 to 12% increases that we see in other communities.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so before we move forward and review the options for consideration this evening, I would like to take a few minutes to review the value of the WM franchise and the benefits of continuing our partnership with Newberg. There are many values of the WM franchise, but one of the biggest advantages to having a solid waste franchise is having regulated rates and services for everyone in the community. These rates are approved by you, the council. And along with this, there are detailed cost reports, as Mike just reviewed, that are provided annually that allow you, the city council, to review and ensure there's transparency on revenue and costs that ultimately impact our operating income. The detailed cost reports help outline any necessary rate changes based on a reasonable rate of return. The benefits include efficient collection, multiple service options for all customers at consistent rates, along with the professionally trained commercial drivers that embrace safety as part of our culture. The franchise system benefits the city as there is a franchise fee, which is currently set at 5%, that is paid to the city of Newberg on a quarterly basis. WM acquired the Newberg operations in March of 2010, and we worked at that time with the city staff on renewing the franchise agreement, which was ultimately renewed in 2012 and initiated in 2013. The agreement was set up as a 7-year renewal, automatically rolling over every year, each year, unless the city requested that the contract sunset, which it did in August of 2022. Therefore, the current contract continues through September of 2028, which you will see here shortly. We hope to renew for a full 7 years. You can go to the next slide, please. With particular focus on the environment, employees, and our community, WM feels strongly that the Newberg community will continue to prosper when it comes to all solid waste and recycling needs. Our company has set a bold sustainability vision that benefits our collection operations and transfer station facilities here in the Newberg community. We are proud of putting our employees and people first, who ultimately put you, our Newberg community, first by providing the best services anyone can find. We have 4th generation employees working here in Newberg, and WM has benefited in retaining 1/3 of all of those employees since we have been operating here in Newberg in 2010. We are deeply engaged in our community with local service club organizations and providing in-kind services for local community events such as the Public Works Day, Old Fashioned Festival, and the upcoming Summerfest program. Jason, as well as myself, being a former Early Bird Rotary member, we also are involved in the service clubs here in Newberg. So with that, if you can, yeah, next slide. We have the 2 options to consider tonight. Option A is to make a motion to approve the 3.81% rate adjustment that will increase the average customer's monthly rate up 89 cents per month effective September 1, 2024. Option B is what we didn't present back in June, but this is what we would highly recommend this evening, approving a 1.9% rate adjustment. And this would be effective September 1, 2024, along with a 7-year renewal. This is important to us as we continue to invest in our people, trucks, and equipment. With that, next slide, please. And on behalf of all of the WM employees that service the city, we in the community, we want to thank you for your partnership. So with that, certainly want to open it up to any questions that you may have. And
yeah, Dave, I'm not sure I understand. It's slide 6 about the franchise agreement. It was renewed in 2012, and then it said there was an annual 7-year renewal. So 2012 plus 7 is 2019. And now, so that would tell me the next time it would renew at 2026, but this says it's 2028.
Correct. So, good question. So the way the franchise agreement works is it just renews every year. So every year it renews itself for another 7 years.
Rolling
Correct.
7 years, yes.
Correct. So with and then it was in 2022, city staff let us know that they wanted to have that contract or the franchise sunset in which would be 2028, September of 2028. And that's what tonight, this is what we would like, is to renew that to a full 7-year agreement. So we can continue to invest in the community in our people and our trucks and equipment here in Newberg.
Well, I think this one's for you. So in 2021, the city decided it wouldn't do an auto renew, and that's why it will sunset in 2028. And what would happen then?
So when I came in as the city manager, one of the practices I did for public transparency was I sought to end all contracts that would automatically renew without a limitation. I wanted all vendors to have a moment in time when an RFP would occur, or an RFQ if it was an engineering contract, because I think that it's the best practice for getting good value for money to do that periodically. Now, if we were to do a 7-year contract right now, that would be 21 years of service without an RFP process. And that's of course the council's right to make that decision. So yes, at that time, I was looking at all the city's contracts and I found some very interesting things, and not improper, but interesting. And of course, at that juncture, there were several contracts that we stopped or we changed.
And if I could add, Mayor and city councilors, I think it's important to note that there's an Oregon statute, 459A, that states that the cities and counties in Oregon do not have to put the solid waste franchise agreements out to bid. And it's very uncommon in Oregon. Because of the process, the detailed cost reports that we provide to you each and every year, that gives the city the opportunity to look at, our expenses and revenues and ensure that there are consistent and competitive rates for the customers here in Newberg, as well as other communities, most communities in Oregon.
I actually did receive a letter from a citizen talking about waste management. Do you have somebody, if they have a problem with a bill, this is a customer service question, do you have somebody, this citizen is requesting that someone from Newberg actually answer the phone in Newberg. Is that possible? Not a computer, an actual person. When you call the number, someone answers. It's not back east, someone at the Newberg location, because this person has had some frustrating experiences. Is that possible?
No, it's a great question. The answer is no. Our model is that we have a call center that's located in Arizona. And along with that, I would like to, also expound on the fact that we have various different ways to reach out to us. We have our wmnorthwest.com website that if you go to the Newberg page, we make it really easy. And I know that sometimes that can be a generational thing, but it's very easy for customers to go and request. There's an online submission form on there where you can request changes in service. You can have, God forbid if there was a missed pickup that they can go in and request that the pickup is taken care of. So we do have, we're trying to keep up with the technology there, but we do have live people, real people answering the phone for us as well, but they're not here.
And actually, if that was escalated correctly, it would have got to a live person at the hauling company to take care of the issue.
I had a similar letter. What was the crux of why they wanted someone in Newberg? Like, do you remember what the specific, was it that they weren't getting response or?
Yeah, and it seems like I've discussed this with them before. I think they're just not getting an answer. They're saying that there's a supervisor on hand, but no one to answer a call locally. I think, being the largest waste management in the world, or at least second largest in waste, they should be able to provide the service given the franchise you give them to fight off competition. So, yeah, I think it's frustrating. You know, Newberg had a local garbage service here for years. You could call the number. I did it numerous times. Somebody answers right away at somebody local. And I think this citizen had that same service and then perhaps had a bad experience with waste management. I'm not sure what happened, but it is frustrating when you can't get a hold of someone and there's no one to talk to in person. So is that basically what you?
Well, we can certainly look into that, but I mean, one of the things that is waste management is the fact that we are so large and we get economy of scale by being so large. So that way we can have a call center, we can have a finance staff that's overseeing more than just the local financials and maintenance, safety programs, billing systems. All those things come with a national company that helps you keep your rates as low as they are.
So there's waste management employees that are over here daily, right? You're saying I can't call and talk to one single person with an issue? I've had the same, I've heard the same complaints from other people, and just recently someone who just moved in. They didn't understand the, you know, the gray lid, the green lid. They tried calling to get it figured out. No one came and picked up, they just couldn't get in touch with anyone. It seems like you should be able to call someone who's here and have a conversation with a person during working hours.
So we do, our call center is open, you know, every day, 8 to 5, where customers can call in. And the agents have all of our Newberg information. We certainly review that on a frequent basis to make sure if there's any changes, those are updated as well. So they can speak to the gray lid or, you know, green lid, et cetera. But, you know, here in Oregon, all of our customers throughout the state, the call center that is utilized is the one in Arizona.
Nightfall. I'm asking the question because I feel like I run contact centers for my job and no one should know it's a contact center. I mean, so the crux of it is poor customer service is what everyone's saying, because a contact center, they should be answering the phone and have the ability with how contact centers are now to know where the call's coming from and that it's coming from Newberg. So therefore answer it as a Newberg employee. And that would probably give assurance to people that they actually know the community that they're receiving a phone call for and can do warm transfers and make them feel like it's local and not a conglomerate. That I totally understand scalability, and I appreciate you just saying no, because I would say the same thing probably with my job. But I do think that there's an opportunity to improve customer service and give the feedback from this council to your contact center supervisor that it ain't cutting it.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah.
I have expressed to you before my experience with the call center. One day my yard cart was set back down and the wheel was broken. And I got to drag it to my backyard, fill it full of stuff, and then drag it back up. So I didn't want a broken wheel. So I called Waste Management. And it took me quite a while to explain to this lady what it was that my issue was. And then she said to me, hold on a minute. I was on hold for at least 10 minutes while she, I'm pretty sure, called Newberg to find out when you guys could deliver another car, which wasn't even the question I asked her. And then she came back on the phone eventually and said, we'll have a new car to you in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, what do I do with my yard debris in the meantime? So I put the cart in the back of my truck and I hauled it down to Waste Management and found a gentleman who gave me a new cart and took that one away. So your pricing is fine. Your trucks are beautiful. You guys are good looking. I mean, I like most everything about you, but our customer service sucks. I mean, right, I
Well, it
just,
is ours, but yes, we definitely need some improvement there. There's no doubt about that. And we have just recently hired a lady to oversee customer service within Oregon so that she can address these things. And we do hope to have improvements shortly to you guys. 'Cause
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to wait, more than a week. We try this for the efficiency purposes, we might want to set that up the next week, but yeah, we don't want you to wait. You shouldn't have to wait that long to fill up a yard delivery card for sure.
honestly, I was probably madder about waiting on the phone while she was calling you. She could have called me back. Anyway, the request in front of us, I guess we have two requests. Oh, I'm sorry, Robin.
Well, I was gonna make a proposal about the rates. Do you have something you wanna say instead? Okay, based on last year, we gave you 4.7. I'm going, and, Peggy made the statement at a few other meetings that our citizens have seen a lot of rate increases. We'd like to keep those low. I'm proposing we do the 1.9%. That puts you at a rate of return at 8.64. That's within your rate of return amount. And we continue the contract until 2028. And at that point, if customer service has improved, we don't get any more letters, then I still think we should put out an RFP and we look at it then, but that's what I'm proposing. 1.9 this year, write it out until 2028, and then we'll do an RFP and see if you guys are still competitive and hope to see customer service improves. That's what I'm proposing.
Similar. I appreciate you guys providing the second option. I move that we do a third option, and that's to give you a 1.9% increase without renewing your contract this year. It would come up, but I know on the 28th. I just put it in the form of a motion.
Could I offer a suggestion?
See if we have a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, although, we would appreciate the 1.9% increase. I mean, ultimately, we want the long-term relationship to continue here in Newberg. And, and this might have to be an answer that our director of operations might need to agree to behind us here, but I would offer a motion to continue our 7-year agreement so we can continue to invest in this community and go without the increase just to have that 7-year renewal so we can continue our investment here in Newberg. I think we feel strongly about that. We've been here for many years. We would love the assurance of our people and the employees that work for us here in the city. And to us, that's more important. And I think you can see by the comparison of rates that we showed on that table, our rates are they are in comparison with other cities throughout the community that we serve.
Okay. Mike.
Just so I understand this, current contract expires 2028.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so what you were proposing is go 7 years. So it just goes just a few years longer, or 7 years added on to the 2028.
It would be 7 years effective this year.
Okay.
Starting in September.
Okay. Why? I mean, you have 4 more years. I understand you want to be able to plan. I guess maybe that's the bottom line, is you're wanting to plan. Because I was just thinking, why couldn't we wait and do this in 2 years? But I suppose if you're planning your operations big as you are, you probably need to have more time. Okay.
Exactly, Counselor. I think if you look at, the trucks that we have to purchase, they're probably over $400,000 now. We need that depreciation, to.
That time to depreciate them. Otherwise, if we have to burden a rate with a $400,000 truck, then the rates are gonna go through the roof. And that's what you see in other communities where they haven't had the time to plan out their truck purchases. Then their customers are getting hit with rather large increases. And I think it's important to note again that, the employees that service Newberg, they're the locals here in the community, and they take pride in their jobs and taking care of the customers here. And we would like that long-term assurance to continue to invest in them for job securities as well.
I can appreciate that with regard to job security, and I did not see this conversation going this direction with 4 out of 7 of us having customer service stories, unhappy stories. So I would like to hear what city manager thinks about this idea. Before I say that, I also, I don't want a 0% increase this year and then look at a 10% increase next year.
Right.
I get your 10% rate of return. It's great in a good market and when everybody's thriving and can keep up with inflation. And I know you guys struggle, we all struggle. But I wouldn't be very supportive of an increase next year because you got a 0% increase this year.
And that's what drove us to that option B,
Yeah.
so we could.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I'm just going to be really honest and say now that I know you could take a 0% increase, it kind of makes me want to, I mean, these are your options you put forth. It doesn't mean we have to pick one, right?
Right.
So anyway, you're looking out for employees. We're looking out for our citizens who are strapped.
Right.
Many, many of them are.
This is a good conversation. I appreciate the option B. I was planning to support the option B. Hearing council, I don't know what our contract language, if it could be amended to include a customer service provision or clause. That's what my contracts have to have. And you have key performance indicators around customer service. I would love to, I would support option B today if we could have customer service, keep KPI added to our yearly reports.
Yeah, I think I could support that, it's really hard for us to really gauge how many customer service issues we're really talking about. I mean, we have over 6,000 customers that have the ability to call in for either a missed garbage, a missed yard debris, a missed recycling, or a glass container. So you take 6,500 times 4 times 52, and that's how many services in a year we're talking about. So, I mean, that's really and that's why I really appreciate the fact that we're talking about KPIs and understanding how many calls have actually been generated, how many have actually been solved in less than a day, how many have been carried over to the next day, and just make sure there's some reporting out there. And those are the type of things that we are in the process of developing so that there is clear transparency for what's going on out there. Because trust me, the last thing I like to do is to go to a city council meeting and hear about customer service. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you.
Can I follow on one? The reason I think it would be really important too is also because what you're saying around, I think it is normal for any type of board when constituents or, friends or whoever see on an agenda to provide feedback, but it's anecdotal, right? It's a very small portion of people, and it would be great if you could come back at some point, and then if we were to pass this, or even if we don't, and just be able to demonstrate with call volume too, like putting numbers next to, whether you have wrap-up codes on your calls or whatever it is, to be able to classify what the nature of the call was and how you got the resolution.
I'd like to hear Will's perspective on the stopping the automatic renewals, not just for waste management, for a number, maybe all, I don't know, of the franchises.
One of the most important things about government is that, at least at the local level, it can try to be transparent with people. And although it's the case that under Oregon law, there's no need to do an RFP, it would be the right and the transparent thing to do. Given that our rates are so good, because they are, and given that you have just some small customer service issues to solve, which you do, because I had to cancel my glass pickup because it never get picked up. Given that we have those things, I don't quite understand what the strategy is, because for once Newberg's had a city manager here long enough to see the pattern. Gentlemen, you don't want to do an RFP ever. You want to roll this forward 7 years ad infinitum and never do that process. But it's a healthy process. It's really healthy. It's almost democratic, you might say. So my suggestion would be that these are two separate issues. The rate that is discussed, but showing your good numbers, showing your bookkeeping, and the rate that they talk about, that's one part of the equation. Whether any service provider, be it a phone provider, no matter who it is, whether any service provider should have 21 years of uninterrupted service without a check and balance, because I'm very confident you're going to win that RFP, because it's going to be heavily weighted on price. Because we run the city like a business these days. What's the problem?
Well, I guess we just find that, you know, under Oregon statute is that this is very uncommon. And, you know, for us to make the type of investments that we are making, as well as being somewhat, you know, looking out for our customers and our employees, you know, we're just, you know, trying to avoid that.
May I respond? So, and then of course I'll then cede the floor. So yeah, it's very uncommon. So is the way Newberg's run.
Excuse me?
So is the way the city is run. It's uncommon too. We have an operating budget smaller this year than last year, and we're actually looking to remove one of our fees from our billing statement rather than add fees. That's even more uncommon in Oregon. So we don't operate like a normal city because we actually really care about this stuff and we're motivated. Some people even gave up their careers that they loved to help the city. It's not just a job for us, as it is not just a job for many of your employees who do good work every day.
Yeah, I'd like to.
You gentlemen, yeah, it looks like your boss back there has something he wants to say.
He doesn't call me boss. My name's Adam Winston. I'm the Director of Operations for Waste Management. I've been in the Oregon area for most of the last 25 years. I'm associated with Oregon and Washington. Do you need my address or anything? I'll be happy to say for the record if you need. Okay, so a couple things. Thank you for your feedback. We're in a service, and I apologize for my hoarseness. I've got over a cold and I've had a cough for like 2 weeks. Not contagious, and I've tested for COVID, we're good. We're in a service organization, and regardless of the math, perception is everything. And for counselors saying a concern regarding customer service is unacceptable. I'm just saying it's unacceptable, and we have to do better. Because perception is reality, and for counselors expressing their concern is disheartening for me, and I'm going to be taking that to our customer service group. Regarding your the questions about the franchise, yes, it is. The Oregon franchise is unique. It's unique to the state of Oregon. Is that if you do what you need to do, and there's general rate reviews, there's service reviews, et cetera. The franchises throughout the state will run in perpetuity, but they are rate regulated, and so the issue is if the rate regulated, we provide the service. What is the need to put it out for a bid? However, as I say, and I've always said, because I've been associated with the Oregon market for about 25 years, our franchises are precious. and we have to treat them so. And if we do not provide the service that expected, then there's a risk. There always is in every franchise, in every hauler throughout the state of Oregon. I understand, you know, what, you know, your points, absolutely do. And, yeah, you know, we're in business here. We try to control our rates. We serve as the will of the council and the will of our franchise and the will of the people. And we need to earn that. And if it is, you know, we obviously here hoping that we will be able to extend the franchise. If the will that's not, obviously we would like some type of rate increase today, and we'll continue to try to earn your trust, and to do better and to, ensure that we can continue to extend or provide the city the services that we have in the past. We're located in Newberg. We have people that live in Newberg, and we think that that is a value to the city as well. But I just want to come up and state that, and obviously, whatever you decide today is what we'll live with, and we'll continue to try to earn your trust.
And this is not a rebuttal, by the way. We've received communications from the city attorney while we've been doing this discussion. And the city attorney has indicated that we should do an administrative hearing process to create legal sufficiency if we do not accept one of the two offers that's on the table right now. So in other words, James has informed us, thank you, Christy, that if we're going to take a third option, then we should do that through the format of an administrative hearing.
Which means what?
James will be able to explain that better. It's a council process.
Okay.
That has, it has certain guards and it creates legal sufficiency because, help me out, Christy, what is it defined as in ORS?
There would be noticing about it, so you could just, if anybody wanted to weigh in on whatever the third option is or be here, there would be an opportunity for comment. It's just what I would call probably like a best practice recommendation in this situation.
Just channeling the man we paid the big bucks.
Gotcha. Robin?
I hear what you're saying about the process that James is talking about. I don't recall doing this last year. Did we do this last year? We approved 4.7 last year.
So what James is saying is, in previous times, an approach was made with a suggested number, and the thing that was offered was accepted by council. There are two approaches on the screen right now, two offers, and if we're contemplating doing something different, driven by a council opinion, he is saying to us, as a tenured attorney, that the best way to do that would be through this process of a hearing.
So in light of all of the inflation and stuff that's going on, I totally understand that coming from the type of business that I'm in. But you have new customers that are coming online because of growth that's going on in Newberg with homes and with apartments. I would be okay to go with hold the line, no increase, because I think things are going to be different in a year from now. And I'm okay with extending the 7-year franchise renewal. I'm okay with that, but I'd like to just hold the line because it's just tough on everybody. Even though 1.9% isn't that much, it isn't that much on everything else. It adds up to a lot. So that would be my consideration.
You guys normally would come to us next year, correct? So you're a year early looking for an increase?
We actually come to you every year with our detailed cost report, and then based on the results of that report, if we're within the range of 8 to 12%, would trigger a request. And if we were within that range, we would tell you, hey, the rates are looking good. There's no need for a rate increase for the following year. And so
Okay, thank you.
I feel pretty strongly with what Peggy was stating about, although I like Mike's suggestion, I don't want us to get into a situation in a couple of years where we have an astronomical increase we have to make because, so I still favor option B. I do really like the competitive going out for an RFP. But given that it's halfway through its contract, I would be willing to make a compromise and go with option B to keep the rates low as we possibly can in 1.9. Looking at the proposed number seems like a more palatable increase.
Now that 1.9% increase is for this year. They will most likely be back next year looking for whatever that goes. So, Peggy?
I tend to agree with the city manager in terms of it doesn't hurt to do an RFP. And frankly, I think it incentivizes Waste Management even more to get the customer service issues resolved. While you were talking, I saw two more heads nodding in the room that you didn't see that have had issues with the glass or whatever. So I'm just going to go for it. No increase and an RFP in 2028. The fact that you've offered it tells me you can afford it for this year. But again, if you come back next year and want a 6% increase, I'm not going to, I wouldn't say zero, but I wouldn't say, yeah, you get it. I know that's hard line, but that's where I'm at because I'm thinking citizens.
I'm being like on fire tonight. I'm speaking a lot. I'm sorry, but I do think though, when you talk about businesses that have large equipment investments, as Waste Management does, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by making Newberg not a community that they want to really invest in, and that they're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out and planning to exit with concern that we would pull the contract. So I do want to make sure they stay here. And I do think that we need to meet them halfway to allow them to continue to stay here and keep jobs local. Can you answer how many jobs did you already say that? How many jobs are in Newberg?
How many total employees are in Newberg? There's 29 total employees right now. Plan on bringing on 2 more.
Nice.
So we've had lots of discussion here. I guess I would like to see a motion either for option A or option B, or direct or staff to bring back some sort of compromise to the next meeting as the attorney suggested. Robin?
I move we go with option C, have staff bring back more information. Did you say it goes out to the public? I would like to know what the public thinks.
We would notice that, it would go back to the public, and then James would take us through the administrative hearing process if that was the will of council. James is just being cautious, and that's what we pay him for.
Yes, I move we do option C.
We need to give James more direction than that. So go ahead and put some numbers on it, which will not be binding today, but in fact, we'll ask James to come back to us with that agreement.
Well, I guess I'll go with my original was 1.9%, I guess this year, without a contract renewal.
That would be, we would accept that. That would be acceptable.
Because 1.9 puts you at your range of return on investment. I think we're keeping the rates low for our citizens. And that's still within your range.
I like it. I'll second it.
So if I understood correctly, you said 1.9% for 1 year. No extension to their contract. Is that correct? And the second understood that as well. Gentlemen, that's acceptable to you?
Does that need to go to the administrative process?
Legal question. If we say here that they're under no coercion, the millionaires. So if they say.
You haven't seen my checkbook.
Bigger than mine. So if they say that, do we still need to have an administrative hearing?
I think you would still want to do the process. Because then it allows.
What would the time frame be then? Because we would still like to have some type of adjustment. Obviously, we are coming to a compromise where we didn't expect, but we want to continue to work with the city. What would the timing be then for this? Pardon me?
Another thing that makes Newberg unusual compared to most cities is it can move really fast. So
for government moving fast, I wanted to say.
Yeah, really fast. If I could show you the list of things that we've done here in the last 2 years, it would blow your mind. So, I think, let me just check on something. Agenda's not looking bonkers for next time. So we could probably bring this back around at the next meeting 2 weeks from now.
I would also suggest that if it looks to me like the will of this council is going to be to pass it, so if you did not choose to come to the meeting, I'm sure you'll have the same result. But that's up to you.
Oh, I'm sure we'll be here.
Good way to spend a Monday afternoon. So, the motion.
It's good to meet new friends.
The motion on the table is to ask staff to come back with a 1.9% increase for 1 year and reevaluate after that. All in favor can signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you.
Well, what a meeting, huh? Anybody have anything else they want to bring up today? I'm sorry? No?
Well, yeah. Are we going to have a report back on the Butler property in an executive session on the 19th? Like, where is the update on that? And I would like something in open session.
Yeah.
Okay, firstly, you shouldn't have spanked staff for doing what you told them to do. We were just doing what you told us to do.
Well,
We're good staff. So, second thing is where we're at with the Butler property is James was directed to create a letter of engagement to send to the bidder that offered the amount that was acceptable to council, he said, choosing all his words carefully. So that letter is being drafted by James. The letter hasn't been sent back yet because James is doing many legal things for the city. When he has that letter back, I will immediately convey it to the person that was selected by council to get them to answer each of the bullet points that council asked me to put in that letter. That would be the next step. And so then we would wait to hear, and given, a reasonably quick turnaround, I would assume we would want to hear something pretty quickly from that bidder. Because on the record, obviously, I want the Butler property to do something amazing for downtown, as do you. So that's the route that lies ahead of us. And many of the offers, as you know, were given to us on the condition of anonymity because it's a commercial enterprise. But as soon as there is something more to know, I will convey it to council.
So I'm reasonably sure that what the question that she's really asking is, with the new information we received from tonight, is there any appetite to reevaluate where we are in this situation?
Playing no favorites with any one of these folks who have offered and have made an offer, because it doesn't put a penny in anyone's pocket, right? It's just we're trying to do the right thing. If council feels that the appraised value that we appraised from the formal appraiser was wrong, and we should go back to the market in a more aggressive way, which was one of the two options we had in front of us before, and we decided not to do that. But if it's the will of council to go back to that decision, overturn it and go with a more aggressive marketing stance, absolutely, I will do it. ASAP.
So the obvious questions would be, is there any legal repercussions for doing that? Because I think, I'm speaking for everybody here, and I've learned that that's probably not a good thing to do. But if the citizens were to find out that we were seriously selling the house for a lot less than what somebody would be willing to pay, I think we owe it to them to try to recapture that money.
Okay. So I totally agree with you. I totally agree that this has been my concern since we were in executive session. This is not the right process. And again, I'm going to stay consistent with what the issue we just had beforehand, which is we cannot go back on. What? You're giving me daggers all night. Like, God. No, I don't want to go back on our word. We're in an active negotiation with a developer. And so we should go back to the developer. If someone presents to us an offer in the meantime, where we left it was, if a better offer came forward, we would entertain the offer. We don't proactively now go out now that we've accepted the negotiation. That is bad. So no, we should not go back out. We need to see this negotiation through. And if someone perhaps submits a $400,000 cash, we say, hey, we have this offer. Not, hey, we'll take your $400,000. We go back to the negotiation we're in and say, hey, turns out now we have a $400,000 cash offer. Can you beat it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to allude to the same thing is I don't think we ought to go back out and go through the whole process again. I'm concerned, and I was concerned, and I mentioned this about the appraisal. I mean, it just seems like it was really low, and I thought we did okay in the bids that we got. But I guess my question to legal counsel would be, if somebody does come forward and offers a whole lot more money, and are we obligated or not obligated? Can we do that? Can we accept that and not put ourselves in a jeopardy of a lawsuit?
Well, my disclaimer always is anybody can sue you for anything, whether it has merit or not. So I cannot promise you ever that you won't be, that the city won't be sued for something. Whether that lawsuit has merit is a different question. I think the only authorization was to start preparing a letter of intent, which is a non-binding document that we were going to use to just kick off negotiations for this property. There was not any sort of commitment that is binding to sell to a specific individual or to approve a sale on any certain terms. So what I'm telling you is that, yeah, I think you can you can explore other offers.
And I didn't mean any slight, at least honestly, I'm not, I was just, in the executive session, we talked about, sorry, we didn't talk. I was directed to not doing a bidding process. And so I did what I was told, right? Now, we are certainly open to entertaining any other offer from that fine gentleman's long-standing company, long established in our community. If he makes an offer, it can be brought back to council ASAP. We've not committed to anything yet. We've not signed anything yet. If the first offer that we have on the table, if this person doesn't give us their commitments, we can turn to the next person and work our way through that list. So you're right. We are not tied to anything right now, but to explore. Staff has been directed to explore with the first price person the offer. That's all right now. And more things could be done easily.
So this question for legal counsel. I know both those gentlemen, Mark and Matt Wilkins. I don't have any insurance with them, so I don't have any financial connection there. But I could see them perhaps this week, because we've talked about different things in the past, reaching out to me. What if they reach out to me and they go, Mike, we didn't know about this. I've got somebody that would buy this. Can we make an offer? What am I supposed to tell them? Can I say, yeah, can I tell them, yes, go ahead, or am I not allowed to, as a counselor, individual counselor, to do that?
I would say they're welcome to submit offers, solicited or not, to the city.
So, by the way, I appreciate consistency out of
and-
both of you. You've come down the same way on both decisions, not revisiting them. However, I believe you're wrong. I'm not always correct. I know, it's a surprise, isn't it? But when I'm dealing with the citizens' money, as I'm charged to do with here, I'm willing to accept that I made a mistake. We are at the point where we could back up, regroup, and take another run at this. And it looks to me like the most critical mistake that we did was not hiring a professional to market this property for us. Well, I don't know what to say. That's a complicated situation because there's probably 3 real estate agents in this town that could do it. One of them was the appraiser, one of them has an application, and the other ones were the ones that spoke tonight. So it's not easy, but if the best thing to do for the citizens of Newberg is to stop this deal here and regroup and start the process over in a better fashion, I'm okay with that.
Can I just add also to my comment previously to Councilor McBride? I would direct anybody who wants to make an offer to talk to Will as the appropriate point of contact.
CC James.
Yeah.
I do think we didn't follow the best process that we possibly could, and we'll learn from it as we go forward. But I also think that we need to stick to the process, and we are declaring tonight that if anyone would like to entertain an offer, do so or don't. And that's their time period. It's a clock, it's running, people are negotiating, but it's open. And so I don't think that it's right for the applicant that we moved into an LOI with to go back on our word. We need to negotiate with that company individual. That's where I stand. And I don't want to go backwards.
It wouldn't have to go backward, right? Nothing's stopped. It's just if somebody else decides to come up with it. Okay, I just want to make sure what you were saying.
But there was conversation about maybe moving forward and hiring somebody to really market it out there, which is, I think, what Elise is not wanting to. So we're not going, that was where I think going backward is where you were coming in. Yeah, I don't want to go through that either. But I understand where you're coming from, Mayor, and I don't know.
So just refreshing everybody's memory, right? there were two possible approaches to the sale of the property that I posited in executive session. One approach would be a marketing effort that would involve RMLS listings and marketing and probably some loss off the top for the selling of the property. And then the second option was to disseminate the knowledge widely within the local community and see what offers that would get. So we decided, we didn't, you decided to go with that approach and not with the full meal deal approach, which is the path that we're on right now, right? So.
This comes back to not understanding the industry entirely. It just would never have occurred to me that all the developers in Newberg wouldn't hear about this property. But Chamber of Commerce, I can't remember how else, but anyway, that's just my thought after seeing this big surprise.
I'd also point out, there was a resolution approved declaring that that was surplus property, and authorizing a potential sale, and that was done in a public meeting.
And I mentioned it in the public.
I actually got a phone call from Matt 2 weeks ago while Will was on vacation. And he told me that he had just sold the property by the one he talked about tonight for $380,000. And my jaw kind of went, uh-oh. So I asked him to contact Will when he got back, which he didn't do until tonight. So, anyway, I'm willing to go along, but I really think that we owe it to the citizens to regroup, try to get the full value of it. I hate leaving $100,000 on the table is what I'm saying. Mike, go ahead.
So I'm curious, I wanna hear something from Derek and Glenn on that, just what the mayor just said. What are you guys feeling about this?
You want to know what I'm feeling? Well, there's some disagreements with how I was feeling last time. So, I agree with the mayor. I think the mistakes were made and that maybe we should look at a different direction.
And I would have to agree with that as Mr. Mayor, yes, I agree with you as well. I think things need to be kind of looked at over.
So, yeah. So Will and attorney, what type of vote should we take at this point?
I would suggest that if you desire to do the marketing with an agent in the way that we've been discussing, that option A, that the road not followed, that a motion to that effect would be good at this time, if you want to do that other direction. Because then I'm going to have to reach out to the person we've already reached out to, and I'm going to have to hire someone not from Newberg to deal with the matter. It'll have to be someone from another county and various other steps that I'm going to have to do.
Okay. So how I understand it, we're going to submit, the lawyers are going to submit something to the potential buyer or the seller, the buyer. If they don't meet the requirements, then we would go back. But we're not talking about changing things while we're in the middle of this.
They are talking about that. We're not.
No. Okay, I would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of going clear back to the beginning, but I do think it would be reasonable to expect that our local developers would get a phone call to tell them there's some property, the city has some surplus property the city has for sale. I don't know, could we do that to all the developers in Newberg without putting a legal hitch in things, or?
just, I'm curious, how would that be different than just starting over with the different route? I mean, there's no reason that these people cannot be considered, but all we're doing is, yeah, but how would that be different?
I was concerned about them being able to, about them knowing they could make an offer now. Like just using the Wilkets as an example, like who's gonna tell them, we'll go ahead and put an offer in? Which would be very different, and say there were 2 or 3 other developers as well. Versus stopping and hiring somebody and going outside the community to advertise. Those are 2 very different things. One's a few phone calls and one is stopping and starting over and paying a real estate agent.
Well, I agree with that scenario with Peggy, but it was my understanding that we were going to get a hold of all the major, developers, and there's only what, 3 or 4 big real estate people in Newberg. And I assumed that they were gonna get contacted either with a phone call or a quick letter to them. So this took me by surprise tonight, to be quite honest with you. And so I want to do the best for Newberg. And if we can, I guess I'm okay with moving forward and we get a hold of the major players in town, developers, and just go, I guess you can put an offer in if you guys want to. I mean, and I would rather do that than hiring somebody from outside of town to come in and do some big campaign that's gonna cost us a ton of money. We ought to be able to get the word out to the major players in Newberg. Everybody kind of knows about it anyways. I mean, they should by now.
Okay. The buyer has not even been given our offer, correct? So we could start over.
The buyer has not been given the letter, the potential buyer, because it has not been written yet. James has been in correspondence, CC me with them, so they know that the letter is on the way once it has been written. That's the state of play right now. So let me try and paraphrase this. Would people be comfortable, is this the will of council, if I simply make sure that each of the 3 major commercial people who we know fully understand that this property is for sale and we're willing to accept other offers? And 2 out of 3 of them, I believe, already do know.
Well, including, I would say, the original offers. Like that was, I'm not gonna discuss executive position, but that, an opinion that I hold is that every applicant should be able to come back with a counter. And that they could come back, the Boca Vista could say, I want to now do 370.
I was specifically directed by council not to do a bidding process. I was directed that way, okay? So if, however, I am now being directed to do a bidding process, I live to serve. Let me know.
On the other hand, Mayor, if the Wilkets knew about it 2 weeks ago and they haven't put anything in,
Did they know?
did I misunderstand what you said?
They did not state that they wanted to buy it. They sold the other property that should be worth less money than this one is for a good deal more than what we had agreed. to accept for that. Also, and this isn't relevant, but, one of the parties who you probably heard from, in further conversations, when I asked him, well, was that not your best offer? Did not say no. Or did not say yes, that was his best offer, I guess I should say. He's a real estate agent, so he's not gonna volunteer. His client would have paid more money, but he did not say that's as much as my client's gonna pay. And I didn't push it any further than that. So I like that suggestion.
What was the last suggestion?
Well, that we authorize the city manager to take more bids. I mean, if we don't want to advertise it with a real estate agent, then let's at the very least go ahead and have the competitive process that at least one of the applicants expected after it was over anyway. So is that a compromise we can live with? Eric?
I think, again, I said this in our meeting, that if I was selling my house, I would want to get the most out of my house. And I still stand with that. So it's up to you guys to agree to that.
Okay.
Whatever gets the citizens of Newberg the most money, is what is fiscally responsible. That is what we should be doing.
Robin?
So I'm not a real estate expert, but since the buyer has already been contacted, can potential buyer, can we do this? Is this something that we can legally do?
We happen to have in our audience right now a real estate agent that is disinterested in this entire process, has no, as far as I know, has nobody interested in buying this property. I think at this point, I would really like to hear what Beth Kaiser has to say. Is that all right with everybody?
I'm so sorry you don't understand real estate. Everything in real estate is done in writing. You do not have a contract with this person. It's just a letter of intent.
Our attorney was going to send them a letter of intent to begin negotiations with this party. Nothing has been signed or sealed as of this time.
Yes, so therefore you just have an interested party. So you, as a citizen of Newberg, I want you to maximize the money you can get for this lot. When we sell real estate, we go through the RMLS or LoopNet. We use professional services so that we can collect a broad group of people to make bids on the property. We do not just go to small entities because you're not going to hit everybody who might be interested in it. So using the RMLS or LoopNet and getting a professional, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's 6 or 7%. And it's worth the money because you're not going to be wondering where you're at and all that. So please let a professional do it. There are plenty of them out there. Do some research, get recommendations. Using someone local would be great, but I understand. I don't think there would be any disadvantage to using someone local.
Council, and I'm channeling their former will, because I'm really good at that. Council had in the executive session explained it was more important to them at that time to weigh up the uses that the property might be used for. And in a normal commercial transaction, you wouldn't negotiate with the other party about what's for the best interest of the city. You would just take the highest dollar.
That's really
At least
true.
you would if you were Scottish.
And greedy and all that. So the good thing about a real estate transaction is it's about terms. And you can research your buyer. I have researched buyers before, or my clients have researched buyers. You can know about the terms that they want And, it's price and terms and those kind of things. So yeah, you have a say, not necessarily, exactly what they're going to do, but it's about terms. I'm not sure exactly. Because you can't write letters anymore. People used to write letters saying, we love your home. We're going to have 15 kids and raise them here. And you're not allowed to do that anymore. Yeah. So, terms and price are, things, the way you negotiate. Anybody else? I think it's really, really important to get it to the masses. I think because for you guys, it is about the money. It's about maximizing it so that it spreads it out for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this particular lot in its particular location is probably one of the most. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And you're basically hiding it when you only go out to certain people and certain groups. And that doesn't feel equitable. Is that the right word? Fair. To people who may have a vested interest in making something beautiful and wonderful here in Newberg.
Robin?
Was the concern with listing it on a broader scale that we would lose the commission and that would hurt the city's profit?
Yeah, but I can answer this one. If we get 100,000 more than what we got now, that 6% didn't cost us anything.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Mm-hmm. One of the other considerations was time that would be involved.
Oh, trust me, if a real estate agent gets this, they're gonna do all
Beth,
the marketing.
I'm glad you were here tonight. Thank you very
Me
much.
too.
You've been very helpful.
Guys were scaring me.
Um,
Shall I leave?
Anybody want to make a motion? I'll take a stab. Mike, go ahead.
I move that we hire a professional and we reopen and put this back out to bid. The Butler property back out to bid. Hold up.
I'm going to need some parameters around this motion. For example, I'm going to need to know how long you want this on the market for. I'm going to need to know if the things that you said earlier in executive session that you want the property, you want done with the property, I'm going to know if those are still things that we want the agent to look for. I'm going to need to know those things in order to contract with an agent.
The first one's easy. We want to list it till it's sold. The second one is, yes, we can put things in there that we want, but they don't have to be deal breakers if they have a different idea. Yes, Beth.
You have to be careful about asking because that's discrimination. It's discriminatory to ask for something specific like that. So be careful. So your realtor will guide you through.
Okay,
that.
so as a professional,
Uh-huh.
are you saying that you feel the city could be at risk if it asked for certain features to be built on the property? Is that what you're saying? Because just for clarity, because they're not saying classes of people or any of that stuff. The things they were looking for were features that would make downtown better, and they gave me a list of things. And I'll name one. A cool restaurant feature was one of the things that is of interest to the council. So could an agent theoretically be commissioned with a short list of desirable functions as the basis of their marketing effort?
I don't think so.
We can certainly look into that.
Yeah, look into that because I don't think so.
But
No,
when
it's-
we,
an
when we
agent
get
would-
an offer, we can use that as a
Yeah.
basis to evaluate it without
Mhm.
asking the question.
An agent just says, this would be a great spot for a nightclub, or this would be a great spot for a fine dining restaurant, ample parking. Um, they can make those kinds of assertions in the listing, hoping to attract that type of buyer.
I guess I'm feeling the drift of council is changing towards wanting to do this style of listing. I think before we move to a motion, I think I need to talk to James and get the answer to this question, which is, are we at any hazard if we put our desired features in this marketing effort? If that's okay with council.
Not only that, but I will, I'll take the heat on this one. You can go ahead and tell people the mayor made a mistake and now he's changed his mind. So, is there any other business? I'm gonna adjourn this meeting.